Prologue, Part 1. 2 long years had passed since the end of the Unification Wars. 2 years since the lands of the Western continent were united under a single ruler since the time of the Six Paths Sage, thus leading the people into an era of prosperity and peace. The city of Kimen, also known as the imperial capital, located 20 miles inland from the Western Sea and accessible from the Kimen River, which snaked its way halfway through the northern continent, ending at its namesake. The imperial capital also served as a hub for trade, as did South Akiyama in the southern region. The nerve center of the unified West was the imperial complex. Think the imperial palace in Japan. Located at the heart of Kumon City, which served as the imperial capital, the 2-mile complex sat on top of a small hill and was heavily fortified, as it once belonged to the late Kimen warlord Rokunbungi Oda. Now, it served as the center of the unified West. Spanning 2 miles, the 4-story imperial palace, which served as the residence of the emperor. The top 2 floors were reserved for the emperor, while the bottom 2 floors were for their guests. Aside from the imperial palace was the Hall of Sovereigns, of which the emperor, the empress and their 16-member imperial council, 8 from the empire's high-ranking samurai and shinobi clans and 8 civilians and nobility who were the elected representatives of the people, met 3 times a week to conduct and manage the government. The House of Sovereigns also contained his throne room, where the royal couple would usually receive their guests, seated on their thrones, as well as their joint office. Speaking of the emperor, he was inside his office, taking on his greatest foe yet. A foe so devious, so cunning, that it almost made him wish that he was fighting his former self, the Akatsuki, the legendary Sannin and Hiruzen Sarutobi at once. A foe so cold and ruthless, that even Orochimaru would be sent screaming in terror from its presence. That foe was paperwork. House of Sovereigns, Office of the Emperor and Empress Consort. Ah, I should have known this job had a catch to it. Honestly, I don't see how my old man could have done this. Leading an army into battle was much easier. The Emperor of the Unified West sat behind his desk, going through the mountain of paperwork, grumbling under his breath about how his wife was able to escape from the abomination of paperwork while he was stuck with it, and of the unfairness of it all. Since I have a death sentence on my head, I might as well tell you the story, Obito said calmly. And he told them of how Madara survived all these years using Hashirama Senju's DNA and had awakened the Rinnegan, of which he had implanted into Nagato without him knowing, and replaced his eyes with a spare Sharingan. He told them that through the demonic outer path statue, which had kept him alive for all this time, that he created a living clone of the first Hokage, of which was now destroyed by the Emperor having sent his forces to level his hideout, and that the Emperor had resealed the demonic statue and banished it from this plane. I acted at his behest, Obito concluded. And I did it willingly, per to his final wishes. Why? Kakashi demanded, while Guy muttered something about, youthful. I wanted to return to Konoha at first, Obito said. But Madara said that would be impossible, as I owed him my life. The crushed parts of my body were reconstructed with Hashirama's cells. While I was recovering and learning how to use my new limbs, I found out through Zetsu that both you and Rin were being attacked by Mist Shinobi. I came to the site, and watched as you shoved a Chidori into Rin's chest. Kakashi winced. You killed Rin, Obito deadpanned. And I killed the Kiri Shinobi when they tried to take her body. It was then, I realized that what Madara was telling me was indeed true. Our reality is indeed worthless and it should be destroyed. In its place would be a new reality. One where there would be no war, no pain and no suffering. Madara told me about the Moon Eye plan. By retrieving the Baiju and merging them with the demonic statue, the 10-tailed beast would be revived, with myself as its Jinchuuriki. I would use the power of the 10 tails to reflect the Majinkyu onto the moon and place the world under an infinite Tsukuyomi. That fool Nagato truly believed that we were making a weapon powerful enough to force the elemental countries to make peace. You tried to make the world in your own image, Asuma said. By robbing it of its free will. Call it what you want, Sarutobi, Obito snapped. All I wanted was to end this world of lies. Sacrifices had been made, my clan, which I helped Itachi to destroy. Sensei and his wife. I still had the utmost respect for Minato, but he was so honorable to the end, even when I unleashed the Nine Tails upon Konoha, as he sealed it inside his son. Asuma's eyes went wide. It was you caused the Nine Tails to attack Konoha. All those people, the Yondaime and his wife, my mother, dead because of you. He was itching to kill the traitor himself. But now, it's over, Obito said, shoulders slumping. Madara will forever weep in the afterlife knowing that his plans will not take place. The Emperor of the West has retrieved the remaining Jinchuuriki and offered them asylum within his empire. To be beaten by a little brat. We're done here, Asuma said to the Imperial Junin who had escorted the 3 of them here. I hope you die slowly, Uchiha, he snarled as he and the other 2 turned on their heels and began to walk to the door. Hataki. Kakashi stopped in mid-step. He turned around. Come closer, Obito said. There's something else you need to know. Wary, Kakashi walked back to Obito, who motioned for him to come even closer so that he could whisper into Kakashi's ear. Kakashi complied, and Obito told him the final piece of information he had. Something which had rocked even Kakashi to the core. With that, Obito went silent. He would remain silent until the Emperor himself executed him. Upon being escorted out of Obito's impromptu cell, Kakashi had been whispering to himself, "It can't be, impossible." "What is it?" Asuma demanded. "What did Obito tell you?" He told me the identity of the Emperor," Kakashi confirmed. "The Emperor is Shinra Tensei." Crunch. Asuma, Guy and Kakashi turned to the direction of the explosion. "What the hell?" Asuma wondered as they sped towards the source of the explosion. On the way, they ran into Kurenai and Cell 8. Kurenai said one thing which had them on edge. "We have to stop Sasuke. He's fighting the Emperor now." Asuma nodded and they rushed off to stop the Uchiha from getting himself killed. As they ran to stop Sasuke, Obito's final words rang in Kakashi's mind. "The Emperor is Minato-sensei's son, the student who you had forsaken. The Emperor is Naruto Uzumaki." With Tsunade, Sakura and Jiraiya flanked by Kankuro and Temari, the Kazekage of Suna looked at his Konoha counterpart with great disdain. Both Sakura Haruno and Jiraiya were flanking the Godime Hokage. "What are you doing here?" he demanded. "Last time I checked, we terminated the alliance with Konoha. We came to offer any assistance in any way," Tsunade explained. "But from the look of things, you already have everything under control." Gaara nodded. "The battle has been over for nearly a week. The Akatsuki has been completely destroyed. Its leader has been captured by the Empire and will be executed for his crimes. The elemental countries can now breathe a sigh of relief knowing that the Akatsuki is no more." "Can we have a report on the battle?" Jiraiya asked. "One has been sent to the Fire Daimyo," Kankuro said. "You should be getting a copy from him in a matter of days." "You just did not show up because you wanted to join in on the battle," Gaara said. "What do you want?" "To speak with the Emperor and try to smooth over some of the lies he has heard," Sakura said. "Some of which were spread by you and your village." Tsunade shot her pupil a nasty glare. "Look, we came here to help out, to try and repair our alliance," she explained. "It's clear that even without the Empire backing you, that Suna is on the fast track to usurping the leaf as being the strongest of the villages, while Kazuhana's shinobi village will knock us off as one of the 5 main villages. So you want to try and get back on my good side, is that it?" Gaara asked, just as Yamato entered the room. While Yamato spoke with the 2 Sannin and Sakura, Asuna Junin appeared via Shunshin and whispered into Gaara's own ear. While Gaara looked amused, Sakura and the 2 Sannin looked very angry. "When were you going to tell us that the Empire had retrieved the Jinchuuriki and used them to fight in this war?" Tsunade demanded. "Wasn't my place to say it," Gaara replied. "The Emperor convinced them to fight in this was against the Akatsuki. The Akatsuki were looking for the power of the Jinchuuriki, and the Emperor gave it to them, although they were on the receiving end of it. If the rest of those demons were here," Sakura began, "then Uzumaki was here as well." Gaara's eyes narrowed. In the far corner, the gourd which carried Gaara's reserve sand shook slightly, right before the cork popped out. "Senju, please get your student under control, or else the next words out of my mouth will be, sand coffin." Tsunade threw a glare to Sakura which told her to shut up. Gaara continued, "Yes, Uzumaki is here, but he is in the employ of the Western Empire, and thus, out of your jurisdiction. However, I would be more concerned about the leader of the Akatsuki which the Empire has captured. In fact, the Emperor has been privy to the identity of the Akatsuki chief for quite a while now." He leaned back in his chair. "Tell me, does the name Obito Uchiha ring any bells?" That got a reaction from Tsunade, but from more importantly, Jiraiya. "Obito was Minato's student. We all thought that he had died in the last shinobi war. I thought that Nagato was the head of the Akatsuki." Gaara said. "Far from it. The Empire's information network is very thorough, even more so than yours. However, I would be more concerned about Konoha's golden boy picking a fight with the Emperor." Realization crept across the Sannin's faces just as Shinra Tensei. Crunch. "Damn that Uchiha!" Tsunade shouted, turning on her heels and bolting out of the room, Jiraiya and Sakura following her. Behind his desk, Gaara merely smiled. "This is going to be one hell of a family reunion," he mused. Minutes earlier, at the Imperial Consulate, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze looked at Kurama and the assembled Jinchuuriki that knelt before him. He could not be any more prouder of not only his forces, but of the Jinchuuriki and the role they played in the destruction of the Akatsuki. "Money cannot buy the honor which you all have earned here through your actions during this conflict," Naruto began, once again masking his voice. He also knew that Yamato was watching, as he had triggered the seals he had placed inside the neighboring building. "Your actions here in the past several days will forever be remembered, as you have brought much credit upon yourselves and on the unified Western Empire. As Emperor of the Imperial Nation, I declare you all national treasures of the Empire." "Sir," Kurama and the Jinchuuriki barked out in unison. Had Yamato remained inside his hidey hole for another 15 seconds, he would have seen Sasuke Uchiha forced his way inside the Imperial Consulate. The Imperial soldiers inside drew their weapons, but the Emperor ordered them to stay their hand. Not really caring that the Emperor had the Jinchuuriki, Sasuke stormed across the courtyard, Sharingan ablaze. "Where is he? Where is he?" Sasuke demanded. Naruto looked amused. "You again, Uchiha. Where is my brother?" Sasuke demanded. "I know he was here. They said that he was fighting you." Naruto shrugged his shoulders. "People say plenty of things. I could have either been fighting either your brother or his walking sushi plate of a partner. Maybe I was fighting the insane Jashinist and his miserly partner. You never know. This is your first and only warning, little man. Leave now or else I will not be held responsible for what happens if you refuse. Damn you! Sasuke shouted as he unsheathed his chokodo. Lighting began to dance along the blade as Sasuke charged. Big mistake, Fu muttered as she and the other Jinchuuriki quickly got out of the way. Naruto's eyes shimmered into the Rinnegan as he raised one hand. Shinra. This is going to hurt, muttered to himself. Tensei. Sasuke felt an invisible force lift him off his feet and sent him crashing through the compound wall before landing amongst the debris from the battle and from the remains of the compound wall. Naruto did not give him a chance to recover, as he hopped through the gaping hole in the wall and with an uppercut from hell to the jaw, propelled Sasuke into the air. As Sasuke fell back to the ground, Naruto kicked him hard in the chest. Only to find out that he had kicked a log in too. So he's finally learned something, Naruto thought as Sasuke appeared from behind, chokudo in hand, ready to impale him. Smirking, Naruto executed the flash step. Derived from his father's signature Haraishin, Naruto moved fast enough for him to leave an afterimage, of which Sasuke found out the hard way when his blade slashed through Naruto's afterimage. Flashing through several hand seals, Naruto unleashed his jutsu. Wind Release, Deadly Tempest. Having seen Temari's signature Kamiteki in action, Naruto had created a jutsu using Gaara's fan-wielding sister as his inspiration. The Deadly Tempest was an A-rank jutsu which blasted the opponent with hurricane force winds. Depending on which type of element he was using at the time, the Deadly Tempest had several interesting effects. If he combined the jutsu with his fire affinity, then the person on the receiving end would suffer third-degree burns. The wind affinity was the opposite. It supercooled the air, making the person not only numb, but it slowly drained their chakra. Sasuke was hit with the latter. The powerful winds crashed into the Uchiha prince's body, once again lifting him up into the air and sending him into the general direction of Suna's village square, Sasuke cursing the emperor as he was sent flying. The last Uchiha crashed into the town square, just as Suna, Jiraiya, Yamato and Sakura came charging out of the Kazekage Tower, while Kakashi, Asuma and Guy emerged from a side street, following their conversation with Obito Uchiha, and Tsunade came from around the corner following their confrontation with Hinata. Naruto calmly walked into the square as Sasuke tried to get back to a vertical base. Meanwhile, the Imperial forces had blocked off the Konoha shinobi's escape route, effectively separating the Sannin, the Junin and the remnants of Konoha 11 from the majority of the Konoha Junin that were still outside of Suna, creating an impromptu arena. Silly little Uchiha who thinks he is a match for me, Naruto mused. Sasuke coughed up a wad of blood and spit it out. Shut up, he snarled. Where is Itachi? Itachi, so your brother has a name, Naruto said, one hand going into his pocket. He pulled out the item he knew that would set Sasuke over the edge and tossed it to his former teammate, where it landed at his feet. Sasuke looked down and his eyes went wide. With a trembling hand, he reached down and picked up the item. An item he recognized instantly, as it had something to do with his brother. The item in question was Itachi's Akatsuki ring. Correction, he had a name, Naruto said. Sasuke began to tremble as the full totality of what the Emperor was saying had struck him with full force. In case you fail to realize, Uchiha, Naruto continued, your brother is dead. His body, along with what remains of the Akatsuki, is being burned outside of the village walls. Sasuke looked at the ring, then back at the Emperor. The Majin-Q began to spin rapidly as the cursed seal reactivated, thus breaking through the seals Jiraiya had placed on him years earlier that was designed to nullify the cursed seal's influence. Itachi was dead. The Emperor did the one thing that he could not, which was to kill him. His family would be unavenged. He was indeed, albeit he did not know of Obito's existence, the last Uchiha. Flame-like patterns began to appear on Sasuke as the cursed seal began to make him stronger. Black flame patterns began to appear, spreading from Sasuke's shoulder, to one side of his face and down his arm, ending at his hand, which was currently charging a second Chidori. Oops, Naruto taunted. Did I say something wrong? You bastard. Sasuke bellowed as he charged, the now freed cursed seal giving him a boost in speed. Die. Sasuke, no. Jiraiya and Tsunade shouted. Instead of using the flash step, Naruto spun to the side, the cage-style hat falling off his head as Sasuke passed him, missing where his head was at just moments earlier, and prepared his own counterattack. One that anyone who knew the Yondaime recognized almost instantly. Sasuke, don't, Kakashi shouted, just as Sasuke spun to face the Emperor. The Emperor is Rasengan. Chapter 2. Snafu's notes. I was going to be mean and post this after the new year, but decided against it. This will be the last chapter I will post for this year. I hope that VFSNAKE does not mind, as there is a reference from his fanfic Hollow Inari in this chapter and several others, see if you can find them. Also, I had to rewrite this chapter in order to include a fight between Zabuza and Kakashi. In the years following his duel on Wave, Zabuza has picked up some new tricks in his swordplay. Think Zabuza fighting like Nightmare in Soul Calibur 5. Also, someone from Konoha dies in this chapter, but who? Standin' in the heart of darkness, give me my life, give me my energy. Fightin' in the heart of madness, ease my pain, ease my loneliness. Komodo Band, Heart of Darkness. Rasengan. The melon-sized orb of concentrated chakra had obliterated Sasuke's ANBU armor, leaving him naked from the waist up, and had once again sent him flying. The Uchiha prince landed on his back. The mind-numbing effects of sustaining the deadly tempest earlier had sapped the tainted chakra from Orochimaru's cursed seal, causing the black flames to dissipate off of Sasuke's body. You could literally hear a pin drop as Naruto rose to his full height, Hinata moving to his side. To those from Konoha who knew Minato Namikaze, it was as if he was standing before them, save that he was now a redhead and he wore a hari instead of a trench coat. But he was anything but. Sasuke, Sakura shouted, seeing her husband to be being sledgehammered back by her former teammate. The pink head turned her attention towards Naruto. Instantly, she saw red. On gloved hand balled into a fist, she let out a feral scream and charged at Naruto. Sakura, no, Tsunade shouted, holding her student back. Let me go, Tsunade. Sakura shouted, look what he did to Sasuke. Rinnegan activated. Naruto looked at the gathered Konoha shinobi. His earlier visit to Konoha showed that they were not under Danzo's genjutsu, meaning that their hatred for them was indeed genuine. Which was good in Naruto's case, meaning that the gloves were now off. Naruto deactivated the Rinnegan. Well, isn't this the reunion, he said, looking at his former teammates. Although we are now on opposite sides. Tossing a glance to his wife, he said, and here, I thought they would be happy to see us. Hinata gave him a dry grin. I think not, she said. From his place on the ground, Sasuke managed to get out. Dope, the Emperor, you. It's true, Kakashi said, raising his high-tie, exposing the Sharingan. Naruto saw that it was the Majinkyu. Obito confirmed it. Uzumaki is the Emperor of the West. It was then that the Sannin and to the shinobi who had went to the west began to connect the dots, as the full totality of what was now revealed to them. Naruto Uzumaki was the descendant of the Six Paths Sage. Naruto Uzumaki wielded the Rinnegan. Naruto Uzumaki was the Emperor of the Western Empire. Tsunade's eyes narrowed, as did Jiraiya's. Up until Jiraiya's return from the Western Empire, the West was the last place that Naruto would have ended up in. Now, he was back, and seeing as how they screwed him over, was an even bigger threat to Konoha than Orochimaru, Kumo and Iwa combined. How did a dead last like you become the Emperor of the West? Asuma demanded. You can thank your father and those two idiots, Naruto said, referring to Jiraiya and Tsunade. Your father tried to stunt my growth. When that failed, Tsunade and Jiraiya banished me, and tried to kill me by sending Hunter Ninja after Hinata and myself. He pulled out a Hiraishin kunai and begun to spin it from the ring on one finger. Unlike his father's tri-bladed Hiraishin kunai, these were of Naruto's design. Black carbon steel, with the Hiraishin seals carved onto the blade itself. Thinkly Christmas throwing kunai. I should have had you executed, Tsunade seethed. Damn it, I should have killed you the moment that you arrived with Jiraiya. Now that's no way to treat your godson, or rather, your great nephew, Naruto replied. How would my parents think about the both of you breaking your promise to look after me after they died? If you want the true culprit of the Nine Tails attack on Konoha, it's Obito himself. Besides, you kill me, the Nine Tails will kill you in retaliation. You are no son of Minato and Kushina, Jiraiya shot back. You killed them, you were just a demon in human skin. Naruto chuckled, sending chills down the Sannin's and everyone else's spines. You really should rein in your temper, pervy sage, he replied. I could have you and the others killed back in Kimen and your heads sent back to Konoha. But you should be glad that I decided to cut some time for this little reunion. He began to leak potent killer intent as he continued to speak, addressing the Sannin. I'm sensing plenty of bad blood between the three of us. The memories are overwhelming, to tell you the truth. How many crimes have you committed against me and my family? Naruto began to count off their crimes on his fingers. First off, you went along with Sarutobi's scheme to make me into a weapon, instead of following my father's final wishes of having me seen as a hero. And what else? What else? Oh, that's right, the both of you and nearly all of Konohagakure no Sato favored a potential traitor and banished me for doing my job. His gaze fell upon Tsunade and Jiraiya. But the biggest crimes of all came from you two. You betrayed me, and by extension, betrayed my parents. Betray, Jiraiya repeated. Betray, you're wrong, Naruto. We didn't betray Minato and Kushina. We honored them. Every single day you suffered growing up in the Leaf, that was to honor their sacrifice they made in allowing you to live. You were nothing more than a mistake. An accident. Sensei lost his wife, I lost Minato and Tsunade lost her niece. You were a living reminder of what we had lost. For that, you had to pay. Funny, because I met him a couple of years back. You see, as a failsafe, they left a portion of their souls inside the seal as a last resort should I reach 8 tails or decide to break the seal, Naruto retorted. He grinned evilly. They know about your crimes against me. They wanted to tell you that the both of you are in deep shit. You lie, Tsunade shouted. I never lie, hag, not when it comes to family or about my skills, Naruto replied. Whether you believe it or not is no consequence to me. The both of you betrayed my parents by choosing the Leaf over my parents. You are not the son of the Yondan demon. An ANBU wearing a hawk mask, who had not been separated from the others, shouted. Thunk. A kunai pierced the porcelain skull. Blood spurted out from the wound as the man fell over, dead before he had hit the ground. Kurenai looked at her former student in horror, as it was Hinata who had tossed the kunai. The Empress consort reached behind her back and retrieved her dual kukri knives, readying herself for the battle that was to come. Nice shot, Naruto complimented his wife. He cracked his knuckles as the Imperial forces backed off, taking to the roofs, as they knew that this battle was going to be very wild. Don't worry about my soldiers who are surrounding you. They will not interfere in our little reunion. You have got to be out of your mind to think that the both of you can win against us, Jiraiya said. A banished genin and a missing nin against two of the Sannin and the best shinobi that Konoha has to offer. You forget who I am, Jiraiya, Naruto replied as he activated the Rinnegan. I am the unpredictable shinobi of Konoha. Oh, wait, I am not a shinobi of Konoha. Tsunade saw to that. He snapped his fingers and a shadow clone appeared. It was of Naruto, but it was anything but. As the direct descendant of the Six Paths Sage, Naruto wielded the Rinnegan, having unlocked it at the Valley of the End during his fight with Sasuke Uchiha. In his years in the West, Naruto had honed his skills under Kurama's tutelage. One signature jutsu of anyone using the Rinnegan was called the Six Paths Jutsu. In truth, there were 7 paths, the 7th being the outer path. Naruto, however, preferred using the other 6 paths, as the outer path pertained to life and death itself. Nagato had derived his own jutsu, the 6 paths of pain, from the original jutsu. Naruto was no different. Unlike Nagato, who used bodies and chakra receivers for his jutsu, Naruto preferred reinforced shadow clones. Unlike his standard caged Bushin, these were reinforced and would not dissipate when struck hard enough. They would only disperse upon Naruto's command. Naruto called his own variant of the 6 paths jutsu the Wrath of the 6 Paths. Naruto himself used the Deva path, incorporating it into his fighting style. The clone looked scary, even for the shinobi from Konoha. The reddish blonde hair was spiked upwards. Dark markings were on his face, eyes, chest and arms. He was naked from the waist up, showing off a muscular body. He wore a tattered black hakama with a red flame pattern. A pair of greaves were on his shins, although one was covered by the hakama, while the other leg had tucked into the greave itself. Last, his arms had a metallic look to them, as if they were made of an indestructible metal. This was the strongest of Naruto's paths, the Asura path. Sasuke got back to his feet, and fell back to his knees. Whatever Naruto had hit him with had drained him of his chakra. Dope, you killed Itachi. You took my rightful vengeance from me. Naruto responded by making a blah blah gesture with his hand. I will make you beg for mercy. Then I will take your throne, and your wife. The Uchiha finished, looking at Hinata. He had not forgotten that she nearly chopped off his balls back in Kimen. But from the look of things, she appeared to be even stronger than Sakura. The dobe will pay, Sasuke thought darkly. Then I will take his wife as my prize. She will pay for what she tried to do to me. Yawn. You couldn't beat me at the Valley of the End. You couldn't beat me in T-Country. Right now, I'm 2-0 against you, Naruto replied. To the summoned path, he gave its marching orders. Keep Hitaki, Sarutobi, Guy and Yamato occupied. The Sannin are mine. The ANBU are expendable. Sir, Asura Naruto barked out and prepared to fight. Tsunade cracked her knuckles. I am going to enjoy humiliating you in front of your men, she said. You can try, Naruto retorted. I'm not the same Naruto Uzumaki you banished. Before anyone could make a move, however, a massive broadsword landed in between the group from Konoha and the Emperor and his wife, blade first. Kakashi's eyes went even wider in horror as he recognized the blade, as did Sasuke and Sakura. The Kubikiri Bocho, the head-chopping cleaver. And its owner stepped into view, standing behind Naruto and Hinata. One thought to have died while in Wave Country. Well, Zabuza drawled. If it isn't copycat Hitaki. I must have done something good in the past. Today is my lucky day. You should be dead. Sakura screeched. And yet, here I am, Zabuza said. He then addressed Naruto and Hinata. Far be it from me to interfere with both you and the missus's problems regarding Konoha, but Hitaki and I have unfinished business, and I've come to play, chief. Naruto knew what he wanted. Zabuza wanted Kakashi's head. Naruto had no problem with that, since he already beaten the crap out of his former sensei back in T-Country. Naruto had promised that Zabuza could kill his former sensei and he was a man of his word. He's all yours, Zabuza, Naruto said. The demon of Kimen grinned underneath his bandages as he strode forward and retrieved his sword. Stay out of this, Kakashi said as he pulled out a pair of chakra sabers, modeled after the white light chakra saber that both his father and himself once carried. This is my fight. Get them, Tsunade ordered. With that, what would become the Konoha Imperial conflict has begun. With Naruto. Jiraiya and Tsunade Senju were 2 of the 3 legendary Sannin, the former students of Hiruzen Sarutobi. He was the Mountain Toad Sage, Konoha's resident spy master, self-proclaimed super pervert and the trainer of Minato Namikaze, Konoha's Yellow Flash. She was the Slug Princess, granddaughter and great niece of Hashirama and Tobirama Senju, a legendary medic nin and healer, and one of the best Kunoichi in the elemental countries, the 3rd Senju to assume the post of Hokage. Their opponent was their godson, Tsunade's great-nephew, as Kushina Uzumaki was her niece. They had the chance to choose family over the village, the chance to honor Minato and Kushina's final request. In the end, they decided to follow the whims of their former sensei, Hiruzen Sarutobi, in his plans to make Naruto Konoha's weapon. In the end, they decided to forsake their godson. And he was not happy. To say that their former godson was not very happy was saying that water country is a little wet. He was the son of the village hero and his wife, Konoha's Yellow Flash and Uzushiyogaku's princess, also known as the Red Death. He was the Jinchuuriki of the Nine-Tails demon fox, the dead last who they had banished when it became clear that not only did Sarutobi's plans to condition him had failed, but the fact that he could not be controlled. Fate sure had a way to bite someone on the ass. Sasuke Uchiha had attempted to flee from Konoha, believing that the village was not helping him in his quest to kill Itachi. Naruto had been banished and later marked for death because he was viewed as a threat to the Leaf, Tsunade and the council using the convenient excuse of using excessive force. While Sasuke trained under Danzo, Naruto and Hinata had participated in a war which united the West under his rule 7 years earlier. While Sasuke gained the Majinkyu, Naruto had the most powerful of bloodlines, the Rinnegan. While Sasuke had everything given to him, Naruto had worked and fought long and hard for everything he had. The Emperor of the West faced off against the two remaining Sannin. Jiraiya and Tsunade assumed that if the Hunter Nin did not kill Naruto, then he would die without Konoha's protection. There was no love lost between Naruto and the two Sannin, and he made that point known by making the first move, forcing both Tsunade and Jiraiya on the offensive. In a burst of speed, the Genin-turned Emperor was upon the two elder shinobi, punching and kicking. Naruto could have went for an easy win, but chose not to. He wanted to do this up close and personal. Tsunade and Jiraiya found out the hard way that this was not the same brat they had banished 7 years earlier. Far from it, Naruto was not holding back, as he tagged both Jiraiya and Tsunade with several brutal shots. Sonshi had tutored Naruto not only in the art of combat, but in the art of tactics as well, which is why he was holding his own against the two Sannin. Know your enemy and know yourself, and you can fight 100 battles without disaster, Sonshi had told him during his days as a warlord in the Unification Wars. Naruto knew how Tsunade and Jiraiya had fought. Tsunade had her super strength and the slug contract, while Jiraiya had the backing of the Toads and Sage Mode. While the seals he had drawn up had done its job of nullifying the summoning jutsus as well as his own, Naruto still had to contend with their other abilities. Sidestepping a rasengan from Jiraiya, Naruto grabbed a handful of Jiraiya's hair and slammed him to the ground. Raising one foot to stomp the Toad Sage's head into a fine paste, he failed to notice Tsunade coming in from behind, preparing to cave in Naruto's head with a chakra-powered punch to the skull. Imagine her surprise that it was not Naruto's head she destroyed, but rather a wooden log. Naruto had avoided the blow, and had reappeared behind the godime. Banshu Tenin. Tsunade felt herself being lifted off her feet and flung backwards towards Naruto, who caught her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Using the momentum from the Banshu Tenin, he arched his body backwards, planting Tsunade head first into the ground via a vicious belly-to-back waist-lock suplex, i.e., a German suplex. Getting back to a vertical base, Naruto began to punch Tsunade in the face repeatedly. After the first two blows, Tsunade managed to get her hands up in order to block her face from Naruto's onslaught of overhead punches. A battle cry from overhead had drawn Naruto's attention from his attempts to punch in the godime's face. Looking up, he saw that Sasuke has now recovered. Chokuto in hand, he was looking to impale his former teammate. Naruto got out of the way, while Tsunade rolled out of the way, lest she would find herself impaled on Sasuke's weapon. Naruto faced off against the Uchiha prince. Majinkyu spinning, Sasuke went on the offensive. Naruto pulled out a black Hiraishin kunai and parried and deflected the attacks from the Uchiha. A backhand followed by a double open palm strike to the breadbasket forced Sasuke back to the ground, just as Naruto's senses went haywire. Spinning around, he saw Tsunade lifted an overturned pillar, twice as big as he was in her hands, showing off her super strength. With a yell, she heaved it towards Naruto. The Emperor of the West responded by jumping up, running across the pillar before leaping off and kicking the godime in the side of her head, knocking her down. Turning back towards Sasuke, he saw Jiraiya charging in instead, headbutting Naruto, forcing him back. At the same time, Sasuke, now on his feet, tried to outflank him from behind. Naruto saw him, grabbed the last Uchiha and used him as a shield as Jiraiya tried to punch him. Instead, the super pervert nailed Sasuke right in the skull. Naruto knocked Jiraiya away and flung Sasuke into Tsunade. Pulling out a scroll, Naruto opened it, stained some of his blood on it, thus activating the scroll. As Sasuke saw from his place on the ground, it was a storage scroll which contained Naruto's signature weapon, the O-Katana, think Virgil's Yamato from Devil May Cry. The O-Katana he wielded was forged from the metal found inside a meteorite, the blade considered to be indestructible and incredibly sharp, as well as highly adaptable to chakra. Naruto had found it while returning from a campaign in the north. The sword was hidden inside a cave inside the larger mountains. That and over 400 cases full of gold bars, which he used to fund his campaign of unification, and later used it to build the empire. Sasuke looked at the sword and retrieved his own chokoto. Nice sword, he said. I'll take that off your hands as well. You are not worthy of having such a weapon in your possession. It would be better suited for me, dope. Naruto unsheathed his weapon. You are not worthy of this blade, Uchiha. The sword recognizes me as its master. It will reject you. Jiraiya, now recovered, saw that Naruto was distracted with Sasuke and activated Sage Mode. Drawing upon his senjutsu, he created an Odama Rasengan. With Sage Mode activated, it gave him a boost in speed, of which he used to charge at Naruto from behind. Naruto smirked as he sensed Jiraiya's attempt to kill him with his father's signature move. Not breaking eye contact with Sasuke, he uttered the words, "Imperial style, flash step." Even with the Sharingan active, Sasuke could not follow Naruto's movements or copy the technique as he moved incredibly fast, as Jiraiya found out the hard way. Instead of impaling Naruto, Jiraiya found that his rasengan had went through an after-image of his former godson. Naruto emerged out of the technique, on Jiraiya's side, sword raised over his head, his intentions made clear. Slash. Thump. Jiraiya's outstretched arm fell to the ground, the Odama rasengan dispelling, its chakra depleted. Jiraiya's shock was short-lived, as Naruto kicked him in the breadbasket, knocking him back, blood erupting out of his stump like a geyser. Sasuke stood there, shock evident on his face as his brain processed what Naruto had done. "Jiraiya!" Tsunade shouted, having witnessed the amputation of the super pervert's arm by Naruto. Her face twisted into rage, she jumped to her feet, ready to attack yet again before Naruto stopped her. Senju. I would be more worried about your teammate rather than me, Naruto said, looking at Jiraiya. He's starting to go into shock from the blood loss. I'd give him 10-20 minutes tops before he bleeds out without any treatment, he said in a casual tone as if he was discussing the weather. So what's it going to be? Fight me and let Jiraiya bleed to death. Or don't fight me and save his life. Tsunade looked at Jiraiya, then back at Naruto. Gritting her teeth, she knew that this battle between herself and Jiraiya against Naruto was over, as he was right. She turned from the Emperor and began to save Jiraiya's life, lest he bled to death. She was out of this fight, as from the look of things, she had injured and dead shinobi on her hands. Turning back to Sasuke, who had quickly gotten over his shock of seeing one of the most powerful of the Sannin being crushed so easily, he brought his sword into a ready stance. Now, where were we? Sasuke smirked as he raised his chokuto. I was going to show everyone here why I am an elite. I think Emperor of the West would suit me better than a dope like you. You always loved the sound of your own voice, didn't you, Sasuke? Naruto said as they circled. You wouldn't last 5 minutes in the Empire. Face it, you were second best. That made Sasuke mad. You think that you're the only one who knows swordplay. I was taught by the best in Konoha. Naruto raised his sword in a formal salute, Dooku style. Then show me, Sasuke Uchiha. Let's see if the so-called Uchiha elite is a match for the Emperor of the Six Paths. With that, the duel was on. With Hinata. Aside from Kurenai and Cell 8, Sakura Haruno faced off against Hinata Hyuga. The shy, meek, insecure shinobi that had her ass handed to her by Neji was gone. In her place was a medic nin, forged in the fires of the Unification Wars. Sakura had kicked herself for not realizing it sooner, that the former heiress to the Hyuga was not only the Empress consort, but the head of the medic nin program. But now, as Sakura found out as she and Kurenai's team surrounded Hinata, Hinata was an unknown. She was not the insecure genin who got her ass handed to her by her elder cousin. She was Naruto's wife, which made her the Empress consort of the West. Whatever, Sakura snorted as she prepared for the inevitable fight. I've trained under Tsunade. I'm her true successor to becoming Sannin. Not that big Ino. Hinata will soon see that fact firsthand. Sakura would find out just how wrong she was, as Hinata had brought her down in 10 hits, think Jun's 10-hit combo knocking her out cold, her Tenketsu point sealed. Kurenai gave the order to attack. Hinata calmly countered the attacks from her former teammates. Kurenai had went for an easy win, or so she had hoped, with her signature tree-binding death jutsu, only to find out that Hinata's enhanced Byakugan had neutralized her genjutsu. Shino attempted to use his Kikachu to drain her chakra and force Naruto to surrender, only to see Hinata incinerate the tornado of Kikachu with what she called the Deadly Tempest. Hinata then dropped Shino with several senbon needles laced with a slow-acting poison. The poison wasn't lethal, but was designed to attack the nervous system, meaning that Shino would be out of it for a while, and he will need plenty of time to recover. The battle was now 3-on-1, as the Inuzuka and his dog, now mimicking Kiba, and Kurenai fought Hinata. The Empress consort, as they had found out, had some new tricks, as what remained on Cell 8 learned the hard way. As Hinata was distracted with Kiba and Akamaru, Kurenai attacked from behind. Kunai in hand, she was ready to stab Hinata in the back. 8 trigrams, Kaiden. Smack. Kurenai knew of the Hyuga's Kaiden, or rotation. She knew that it was a defensive move, designed to deflect any type of projectiles, as she had seen Neji Hyuga use it against Naruto Uzumaki during the Chuunin exams. Hinata, however, had made it into an offensive weapon. Her body covered from head to toe in chakra, Hinata spun on her heels, the waves of chakra emerging from her body. To Kurenai, it was as she had taken one of Tsunade's super punches to the face, as she found herself being propelled into the air. A volley of poison-laced senbon needles soon followed and met its target, leaving Kurenai in the same state as Shino. She fell back to the ground, having been taken out of the fight, leaving Kiba and Akamaru to face Hinata. With Hinata preoccupied with Kurenai, Kiba and Akamaru struck. Gachuga. Hinata knew that Kiba wasn't above cheap shots when her back was turned, she also did the same while back in the West. They were ninja, after all. Knowing firsthand as to how the Gachuga worked, Hinata performed a second rotation, knocking Kiba and Akamaru out of the move, knocking them both to the floor. Kiba and Akamaru got back to their feet, but noticed the ever-familiar 8 trigrams pattern that they were standing on, which meant one thing. "You're in my range, Kiba," Hinata confirmed. "Oh, crap," Kiba muttered. Moving faster than the normal I can track, Hinata struck both Kiba and Akamaru. As she had used the 64 palms, she split it in half, striking Kiba 32 times and Akamaru 32 times. As Kiba found out, judging from the sealed chakra points, the broken leg, fractured wrist and broken ribs, Hinata had upgraded the 64 palms so that she can tear muscle and break bones. Kiba knew that he was out of the fight. Akamaru would be spending some time with Henna at the kennels. But despite everything, he considered himself lucky that Hinata did not hate him that much. Worst case scenario was that she could have killed him and Akamaru. "You could have went easy on us," Kiba lamented. I didn't kill you," Hinata replied. "Despite you asking me out when we were kids, you were the nicest to me. This is your one-time deal, Onizuka." With her former cell effectively neutralized, Hinata bowed out of the fight. With Kakashi and Zabuza. 7 years earlier, Zabuza Momoki was thought to have died in Wave Country. Of course, Kakashi had embellished the reports on what had happened during the mission. He said that Sasuke and Sakura had defended Tazuna, while he himself took out Zabuza. Naruto, being the dead last, did nothing. But he did not suspect that both Zabuza and his partner used a powered-up blood clone and fled to the west as the Mist Hunter ninjas closed in. In the 7 years since their last encounter, Zabuza had hooked up with a group of Mist refugees living in the southern region and later hooked up with Naruto in his quest to unify the West. The price Zabuza asked for: Kakashi Hitaki's head. Aside from Kakashi, Zabuza had to deal with the 10 ANBU who had came to assist the Sharingan-wielding shinobi in killing the demon of Kimen. Or rather, the 5 ANBU, as Zabuza had cut them down without batting an eye, showing to Kakashi that Zabuza's skills has drastically improved in the years following his death, wielding his oversized sword as if it was like a normal katana. The remaining ANBU kept their distance as they watched Kakashi and Zabuza locked in a life-or-death duel. Kakashi had thought that without water for Zabuza to perform his jutsu, that this would be an easy match for him to win and that Zabuza would die for real. But for someone who once preached, "Look underneath the underneath," he had underestimated the former Mist swordsman as he found himself on the defensive against Zabuza's barrage of attacks. The fight between the two shinobi plus 5 ANBU had moved inside a building. Had Kakashi and the others were paying any attention, they would have noticed that the building in question was a damaged restaurant, a popular eatery for the shinobi and civilians in Suna. Perfect for Zabuza, as he could finally use his silent kill to get rid of the annoying ANBU that were keeping their distance. Once Kakashi and the ANBU were inside, Zabuza pulled out several smoke bombs and threw them at Kakashi and the ANBU. Once they were properly distracted, Zabuza retreated into the kitchen. Out in the dining area, in the midst of several coughing fits, Kakashi managed to get out. "Be on your guard. Zabuza could be anywhere." Zabuza's laughter echoed through the restaurant. "Got that right, Hitaki. I am everywhere and nowhere," his disembodied voice said. "The heart, the lungs, the spine, the brain, the liver, the kidneys, and the jugular. The body's 7 most vital spots. So many ways to kill, so little time. Be careful," Kakashi warned the ANBU with him. "He is the master of the silent kill." "Too late," Zabuza's voice said, the smoke finally clearing. "Your friends are already dead." Kakashi looked around, and sure enough, the bodies of the 5 ANBU were sprawled all over the floor. Then Zabuza appeared from behind, hoping to take Kakashi's head on in one swing. Instead, the demon of Kimen ended up cleaving a log in two. Zabuza spun around and deflected several kunai flung at him from Kakashi. Soon, the two men had locked blades. "Come on, Hitaki," Zabuza said. "I just want to take a little off the top." The sword fight then resumed, with Zabuza beating down Kakashi's defenses. Kakashi managed to break the stalemate and fired off a great fireball jutsu, of which Zabuza managed to block, giving him enough time to unleash Kamui. With Asura Naruto, Yamato, Asuma, Miito Guy and 30 ANBU who were inside the impromptu arena charged towards Naruto. But Asura Naruto stood in their path. "I am going to enjoy this," Asura Naruto said as he prepared to attack. While 10 of them assisted Kakashi against Zabuza, the remaining 10 stood with their ANBU commander. "Spread out," Yamato shouted. "Give him multiple targets. He can't take us all on." "I got him," Asuma shouted as he went through hand seals which Asura Naruto recognized. "Snake, rat, snake, tiger, fire release, ash pile burning," he said before blowing a cloud of chakra-enhanced gunpowder at Asura Naruto, enveloping him. Asuma was the son of Hiruzen and Biwako Sarutobi, a former member of the 12 Guardian Ninja, one of Konoha's top shinobi. So he thought he would cinch an easy victory over what was the village dead last. Asuma had read the files on Naruto, as he was privy to his father's plans regarding the Uzumaki. He was one of many who had assaulted him as a child. The Shinobi Academy had sabotaged his training. Even Konohamaru's friendship to him was false, as it was an attempt for the Sandaime to have Naruto grow an attachment to the village. The only thing he had for him was that fact that he was the Jinchuuriki and that he knew the shadow clones. As Asuma began to make the hand seals for a fire jutsu, the cloud of gunpowder suddenly blew back towards the ANBU and the Junin. Guy's eyes went wide as he saw a single sheet of paper fluttering in the black cloud. A sheet of paper with an intricate series of writing centering around a single word, explosive. Move, the spandex-wearing Junin shouted. Exploding tag. Asuma, Yamato, Guy and Yamato managed to get out of the way, along with 5 of the ANBU, just as the tag detonated, ending the lives of the other 5 ANBU in a violent explosion. Asura Naruto grinned. Apparently, Asuma had forgotten, or did not listen to Kakashi, that his primary element was wind, so blowing back the gunpowder was easy enough with a wind jutsu, followed by an explosive tag, causing Asuma's initial plan to literally blow up in their face. Tantos drawn, the remaining 5 ANBU charged at Asura Naruto, who charged at the 5. As Asuma and the others watched in horror, Asura Naruto knocked the attacking ANBU as if they were not worth the effort, knocking them aside. Judging from the unnatural angles and the blood pooling from their bodies, it was a safe bet to say that they died instantly. Asuma produced his trench knives and focused his chakra into the blades. Guy removed the weights from his legs. Yamato attacked first with his tanto, only to find that it did not affect Asura Naruto in the slightest. Asuma rushed in, hoping that the flying swallow would be enough to cause some damage onto Naruto. Asuma slashed at Asura Naruto, who blocked the attack with his forearm. Sparks kicked off from the metallic arms, but what shocked Asuma was that there was no damage. That's impossible, Asuma thought. The flying swallow can cut through steel. Asura Naruto looked amused as he cocked his head to the side. Is that your best, Sarutobi? He taunted. Asuma's response was to launch a punch to the face, of which Asura Naruto calmly caught with one hand. Guy took this moment to blindside Asura Naruto from the side and tried to bum rush in. Without breaking eye contact, Asura Naruto's hand lashed out and caught Guy's neck in an iron grip. Asura Naruto turned his head to Guy, now having lifted a foot off the ground. Wait for your turn, he said, flinging him into Yamato, who tried to attack while he was distracted. The green beast of Konoha and the Mokoden-wielding ANBU captain crashed together in a heap, leaving Asura Naruto to deal with Asuma, having caught his other wrist when the Sandaime son tried to punch him yet again. Asura Naruto looked at the trench knife, then back at a defiant Asuma. I remember those knives, he mused. I remembered that you tried to kill me with them when I was 6. You killed my mother, you demon bastard. I should have killed you when you were a baby. Asuma spat out. Typical, Asura Naruto said, right before. Crunch. The sound of bones breaking was heard throughout Suna. Inside the Kazekage Tower, the Inoshika-cho trio and Cell 9 winced at the sound. Asuma screamed as Naruto crushed both his hand and the trench knife with it, rendering both his hand and the knife useless. Asura Naruto dropped Asuma to the ground, the latter's hand and trench knife mangled and bloodied. When he brought his other hand to bear, Naruto responded by snapping his arm at the elbow. As Asuma sank to his knees, Naruto's knee smashed into Asuma's face, breaking his nose and knocking him unconscious. Damn you, you unyouthful demon! Guy shouted as he unlocked 4 of the 8 gates. Asura Naruto kicked Asuma out of the way and beckoned Guy. Come, so I can end you, he said. Like Asuma, Guy was also guilty of assaulting him in his youth. Asura Naruto charged at Guy, only to find himself encased in a tree, courtesy of Yamato and his tree-binding flourishing burial. Did that do it? Yamato whispered to himself, as he stood, knowing full well of the Mokoden's ability to reign in the power of a Baiju. Did that stop him? From inside the tree, Asura Naruto gave his reply, no. It did not. Fire release, deadly tempest. With eyes filled with horror, Yamato and Guy watched as the massive tree was reduced to carbon from the inside out, followed by Asura Naruto charging out of the destroyed tree, which collapsed onto itself, his intended target now clear. Yamato was on the receiving end of a metallic fist crashing against his jaw, breaking it in 3 places, which was followed by a kick to the sternum which sent him crashing through a wall, putting him out of commission. Guy, now having unlocked 7 of the 8 gates, moved in to combat Asura Naruto. With Asuma and Yamato out of commission, it was now up to him to take down the demon. You will pay for your UN youthfulness, demon! Guy shouted as he knocked Asura Naruto into the air, high above Suna. As Guy launched himself after him, he followed through with the reverse lotus, unleashing a vicious barrage of punches and kicks. To anyone who had seen Guy and his former student perform the reverse lotus, the technique would be finished off with either Guy or Lee hitting their opponent with 1 fist and 1 foot, resulting in terminal velocity for the unfortunate person on the receiving end. That, however, was not going to happen. As Guy attempted to deal the final blow, Asura Naruto disappeared, and reappeared behind Guy. Hands interlocked and raised over his head, Asura Naruto dealt the green beast of Konoha a vicious hammer punch that sent him back to Suna, where he made an impact crater upon landing. But Asura Naruto was not finished just yet. Upon returning to the streets via Shunshin, Asura Naruto strode over to Guy, who was trying to get back to his feet, and failing, as unlocking the 7 gates had depleted most of his chakra. Standing over the fallen Guy, Asura Naruto looked down in triumph. Not so fun when the demon brat fights back, isn't it? He taunted as Guy tried to crawl away. You sent me to the hospital many times following you using me as a punching bag for your Guken techniques. He raised one sandal-led foot. You thought I had forgotten that, haven't you? Naruto, please, show mercy, Guy pleaded. The gods show mercy. To those who tried to kill me as a child, I show none, Asura Naruto said, right before slamming it down onto Guy's spine. Guy screamed as he felt his spinal cord snap in several places. Your shinobi career is over, Mido Guy. See if you can get Tsunade to fix your back. Mido Guy whimpered as he tried to use his legs, but could not. The pain became too great, causing him to pass out. Looking at the carnage surrounding him, Asura Naruto felt a small measure of revenge. His battle was over. With a poof, he dispersed himself. With Naruto and Sasuke. Sasuke Uchiha was furious. He was an Uchiha, an elite, one of the strongest shinobi in Konoha. He wielded the Majinki Sharingan. He was trained by both Kakashi Hatake and Danzu Shimura. All of Konoha had recognized his strength. Then there was his former teammate, the Kyubi Jinchuuriki, the demon of Konoha, the fox in human skin, the dead last. When Naruto was banished, he was pardoned. Despite his loss and that he used the cursed seal, Sasuke had claimed his greatness, saying that Naruto would have lost were it not for the 9 tails in his body. But as Sasuke was given anything and everything he wanted, Naruto had to work hard for what he had. While Sasuke lived a relatively peaceful life as Konoha's prince, Naruto had fought in the West, making alliances and forging an empire under his rule, bringing about a peace that has not been seen since the time of his ancestor, the Six Paths Sage. Simply put, Naruto had surpassed the self-proclaimed elite Uchiha. Naruto would admit that he had gotten lucky at the Valley of the End. But following their fight in T-Country, it had become clear that Naruto was the strongest of the two. And once Sasuke knew that the Emperor and the Dobe was one and the same, it had pretty much enraged him. Naruto had no problem mixing it up with his own blade, which was why he and the Uchiha were currently in the middle of a vicious sword duel. Naruto effectively neutralized both Jiraiya and Tsunade. Sharingan versus Rinnegan, the Emperor versus the elite. How are you so damn strong? Sasuke snarled as he and Naruto locked blades. You can't be this strong, Dobe. I am an Uchiha. That strength should be mine. How is it you are so damn strong? Why can't my hatred defeat you? I earned my strength through hard work. Even now, I don't use my Rinnegan as a crutch, Naruto replied, right before headbutting the Uchiha, followed by a roundhouse to the jaw, knocking him to the ground. That is the difference between us. There is no hatred, only passion. Through passion, I find strength. Naruto continued to deflect and parry Sasuke's attacks as he continued to speak, reciting what Sonshi had told him when he learned the ways of the samurai. Through strength, I gain knowledge. Through knowledge, comes serenity. He backhanded the Uchiha, busting his lip. There is no chaos within me, only harmony. Through harmony, I gain victory. Through victory, my chains are broken. You talk too damn much. Sasuke shouted. And you have learned nothing, Naruto replied as the battle intensified. The two former teammates turned enemies' flurry of swordplay, Sasuke's shinobi swordplay and Naruto's samurai and mist swordsmanship, intensified, until the two men ended up in a second blade lock. Your power, give it to me, shouted the Uchiha prince, activating the Sharingan. Naruto broke off the blade lock with a headbutt to Sasuke, which was followed by him planting both feet into Sasuke's chest, knocking him backwards. Naruto sheathed his katana. You can't win, Sasuke, he said as his opponent stood up. You're better off just giving up. I have long since surpassed you. I proved that at the Valley of the End. I proved it again in T-Country. And I proved it here. I have nothing else to prove to you. Sasuke's eyes were closed. No, you're wrong, Dobe. Naruto had a pretty good idea as to what was going to happen next, as he watched bloody tears emerge from his eyes. He steeled himself for Sasuke's final trump card. Sasuke's eyes opened, revealing the Majinki Sharingan. Prove to me that you can die. Amaterasu. The strongest of the fire release jutsu and the strongest jutsu that an Uchiha can master. The flames of Amaterasu are said to be the fires of hell, hot as the sun, and said to be unavoidable, the flames capable of burning everything in its path, reducing whatever is caught in the flames to nothing but ash. Naruto's response to Sasuke's attack was to activate his Rinnegan, falling back into the Deva path. Shinra, Tensei. Sasuke's eyes showed complete shock as the black flames were extinguished. In a futile gesture, he raised his hands to block the incoming pressure wave, only to find himself once again on the receiving end of the Shinra Tensei, Naruto's jutsu flinging him back into a wall. Naruto was upon him in an instant. One punch to the sternum had caused Sasuke to cough up blood. This was followed by Naruto unloading a vicious barrage of punches into Sasuke's chest and torso, Sasuke's body jerking like a rag doll with each blow. The coup de grace came with Naruto punching Sasuke through the wall. Looks like I win again, Naruto said smugly. Turning from the mangled Uchiha, Naruto walked back into the street. Then he stopped and turned around. Sasuke, despite being badly injured, stumbled out of the hole Naruto had made with his body. Dobe, we are not done yet. I'll give you this much. You're persistent, Naruto admitted, but the battle is over. You lost. The Sannin lost. It's over. Damn you. Damn you. Sasuke snarled as the cursed seal went into overdrive as he went into stage 2 of the cursed seal. His skin turned into a shade of dark grey, the lips a shade of blue. A black 4-point star-like mark appeared in between his eyes, above the bridge of his nose. His hair had gotten longer, ending at his waist. The eyes no longer had the Sharingan. The sclerae turned black, the irides now yellow. Last, with a large webbed hand-shaped wings on his back. Die Naruto. Sasuke screamed as he rose into the air, right before diving at Naruto, claws outstretched, ready to rip Naruto apart. Had Sasuke been paying any attention, he would have noticed the smirk on Naruto's face. Or the ball of chakra-infused lightning in his hand. Imperial style, Chidori. Sasuke's eyes bulged out of its sockets as Naruto nailed him with Kakashi's signature assassination jutsu, payback for Sasuke doing the same to him. The Uchiha prince screamed as the electricity coursed through his body, playing haywire with his chakra and nervous systems, and leaving a fist-sized hole in his shoulder, the same spot where Sasuke had done to Naruto years earlier, not to mention giving the people watching this fight a good view of his skeleton. The force of the Chidori sent Sasuke sailing back to the mangled remains of Konoha's shinobi. Tsunade and Sakura had their hands full. Sakura wanted to go after Naruto, but Tsunade had ordered her to remain behind to help with the wounded. Asuma's hand was mangled, the other arm broken. Kurenai and Shino had been poisoned by Hinata, while Kiba and Akamaru had several broken bones. Guy's shinobi career was pretty much over, as his back was shattered. Yamato also had several broken bones, and Jiraiya's arm was severed. This battle was over. You used the Chidori on me back at the Valley of the End, Naruto said as Sasuke returned to normal. Consider us even. He turned from Tsunade and the others. Hinata, having watched the fight from the sidelines, walked over to greet her husband properly. However, in her rush, she did not see Kakashi emerge from the restaurant from where he was fighting Zabuza moments earlier, having won his battle. Seeing as how Naruto had won, Kakashi did the only thing he could do. He targeted Naruto's wife. Rakiri. Naruto saw that Kakashi had Hinata in his sights. If Konoha came out as the loser in this conflict, then the emperor would be without his wife. Kakashi was fast, but Naruto was faster. He performed a flash step, closing the distance and shoving Hinata out of the way, just as Kakashi's Rakiri struck Naruto square in the chest. Sharingan spinning, Kakashi saw that he did not kill Hinata, but he did catch Naruto. Tsunade and Jiraiya, despite being badly injured, looked upon the scene with grim satisfaction. Perhaps now Minato and Kushina could finally rest in peace with their killer dead. With this act, the empire would be robbed of their emperor. I got you, demon, Kakashi grated. I finally got you. However, the look on Naruto's face was not disbelief that Kakashi had tried to kill him, but rather amusement. As Naruto rushed to intercept Kakashi's Rakiri, he had activated the Predator Path, which allowed him to take the full brunt of Kakashi's Rakiri without the effect of death. Kakashi's look of triumph turned to one of total shock as Naruto absorbed the jutsu. Even Tsunade and Jiraiya saw that Naruto was still alive, and not dead on his feet. It was because of this development that Kakashi did not notice his impending doom coming from behind. Thwack! Kakashi's eyes bulged as he felt pain. Looking down, he saw the familiar shape of a massive sword sticking a foot out of his chest. Kakashi's eyes widened in horror as he recognized the blade, stained with his blood. The Kubikiri Bocho. No, Zabuza whispered from behind as he yanked his blade out of Kakashi, having got the jump on Naruto's former sensei. I got you, Hitaki. Zabuza. How? Kakashi gasped. Water clone, was all that Zabuza had said. You really thought that you suckered me, didn't you? You forgot about my water clones. During the fight inside the restaurant, Zabuza had retreated into the kitchen, broken the kitchen sink and used its water to create a reinforced water clone, of which he sent after Zabuza. Naruto had warned him of the Sharingan's abilities and now the demon of Kimen was thankful that he had listened to the emperor's advice. All he had to do was wait for the perfect time to strike. And it came when Kakashi tried to kill Naruto with the Rakiri. Naruto and Hinata backed off several steps as Kakashi turned around, and looked into the face of the man thought to have been sent to the other dimension by the Kamui. Kakashi was looking into the face of his executioner. He was dead either way, as the wound Zabuza had delivered to him was mortal. For the crimes of betraying both the Uzumaki clan and my father, your sentence is death, Hitaki, Naruto coldly decreed. Turning to Kakashi, he gave his former sensei his parting words as Zabuza raised Kubikiri Bocho, savoring the look of horror mixed with fear as he knew what was coming. Death comes for us all, Hitaki. But when you die, something far worse awaits you. The blade of the head-chopping cleaver slashed its way through flesh, muscle and bone. Kakashi's head fell forward, while the body keeled over, the stump spilling blood in the street, the body twitching before finally going still. Kakashi Hitaki was dead. Which is that you die with no honor, Naruto finished. Turning to Zabuza, he asked, happy now? Zabuza nodded, very. Naruto turned to the injured Konoha shinobi. Sasuke had reverted back to human form following the Chidori to the chest and was being tended to by Sakura. Hinata made a signal, and the Imperial forces converged onto the scene, weapons drawn. Our battle is finished here, Naruto intoned. Take your wounded and leave my sight. Tsunade, now having stabilized Jiraiya, glared at her former godson. This isn't over, Naruto. Shouted the godime. This is nothing but petty hatred and vengeance on your end. For the moment, it is over, Naruto replied. You call this hatred, I call it retribution. You say this is vengeance. This is justice. But this is only the beginning, you hag. This is the beginning of the end for the Leaf. Go back to Konoha and tell them that the dead last has returned. Tell them that as the yellow flash brought Konoha's rise to power, the Emperor of the Six Paths will bring about its reckoning. Either leave under your own power, or I can send you back in a box. Make your choice now. Tsunade wanted to fight to the bitter end, to go out fighting. But Jiraiya needed immediate medical attention and her Junin were grievously injured. The Imperial forces parted, making a path for the beaten and wounded Konoha shinobi to pass through with the help of the surviving Junin who were kept from the battle at Blade Point, Tsunade giving one final hate-filled glare at Naruto, now placing the cage-style hat back on his head and walking away from the battle, Hinata at his side. As Tsunade and the Konoha shinobi departed from Suna, a fourth party, unknown to either Konoha, Suna or the Imperial West, made his own escape. A white-haired shinobi with glasses. Otogakure, Rice Country, several days later. Inside his laboratory, Orochimaru was going over some notes in regards to his new test subjects when Kabuto came running in, out of breath. Without looking up from his notes, he said, "You're a week late, Kabuto. I hope you have a very good reason as to why you were behind schedule." The Snake Sage had ordered Kabuto to investigate the Akatsuki's movements, which had led Kabuto to Suna. There, disguised as a Suna Junin, Kabuto had witnessed the deaths of both Deidara and Sasori at the hands of the Emperor and Empress Consort. But before Kabuto could leave, Suna was placed under martial law, the civilians evacuated to several fallback spots. Then the Akatsuki invaded, and Kabuto ended up fighting alongside Suna and the Imperial forces against the Six Paths and their 100,000 white Zetsu army. Kabuto had a first-hand look as to how the Imperial forces, shinobi and samurai, fight. He also got a good glimpse of how the Imperial medic corps went about their work. But most important, he knew the identities of the Emperor and his wife, and of their connection to Konoha. To Orochimaru, the Western Empire was an unknown to him. Upon hearing about the Pekora outpost in Wind Country 6 months earlier, he had sent Kabuto to investigate. What Kabuto had managed to find out was that a high-ranking official and his wife had conducted inspections on the Pekora branches in the elemental countries. Grudgingly, he had to admit that the Imperials were strong, especially the man in black's commander of his elite unit of bodyguards. "I know I am behind on my time," Kabuto panted. "There is a development. The Akatsuki has been destroyed." That caught Orochimaru's interest. "Explain." And Kabuto told him what had happened. He told his master about the Akatsuki invasion of Suna, of how Konan and the Six Paths led the surviving members of the Akatsuki and 100,000 white Zetsu clones against a joint force of Suna shinobi and 4 battalions of Imperial shinobi and samurai, and of how despite being outnumbered 2 to 1, the joint Suna Imperial forces were victorious. "There's more," Kabuto continued. "I know the identity of the Akatsuki mastermind. It was not Nagato as we originally expected. You knew him as Tobi, but in truth, his real name is Obito Uchiha." Orochimaru was surprised. So there were 2 Uchihas in the Akatsuki, interesting. Continue. "The Akatsuki were killed to the last man," Kabuto said. "Hiden, Kazuku, Konan, Nagato, Itachi Uchiha and Kisame Hoshigaki. Obito had been captured alive and will face execution upon being sent to the Western Empire." One less headache for me," the Snake Sannin said. "Anything else?" Kabuto grinned. "Yes, the Emperor and his wife. I know who they are." Not wanting to keep his master in suspense, he told him. "The Emperor is the one who was banished for doing his job. The Emperor is Sasuke Uchiha's former teammate, the Kyuubi Jinchuuriki." If Orochimaru was surprised before, this took the cake. "Are you telling me that the Emperor himself is Naruto Uzumaki? The dead last?" Kabuto nodded. His parents were Sarutobi's successor and the Red Death herself. That gave Orochimaru pause. As a former Konoha shinobi and 1/3 of the legendary Sannin, he knew of Tsunade's family history involving the Uzumaki and the Senju. Mito Uzumaki was wife to Hashirama Senju, and Tsunade was her granddaughter. Kushina Uzumaki was Tsunade's niece. Kabuto immediately caught on. "And Naruto Uzumaki is Tsunade's great-nephew." Orochimaru cackled. Tsunade, in her infinite wisdom, banished her great-nephew. They screwed over the direct descendant of the Six Paths sage. So who is his wife? The former Hyuga heiress, Hinata Hyuga. From what I found out, she is the founder of the Western Empire's Imperial Medic program there. I hate to say it, but the Imperial program is a lot more advanced. And speaking of Tsunade. Orochimaru stopped laughing. What? She came to Suna hoping to get back on Gaara's good side in fighting with Suna and to try and negotiate an alliance with the Emperor. Backing her was Jiraiya, several of their senior Junin and several of Naruto's former teammates, including Sasuke Uchiha. Uzumaki has gotten strong, even stronger than the Uchiha. His wife as well, they both had come a long way since Konoha. I bet that the reunion did not go as well, Orochimaru mused. That is an understatement, Kabuto replied. Tsunade had sickered Kakashi and the other Junin on the both of them. Out of everyone, Mido Guy, Asuma Sarutobi, Jiraiya, and Sasuke had it the worst. Sarutobi suffered a broken hand and a broken arm. Mido Guy, well, his shinobi career is effectively over. Jiraiya lost his arm, and Sasuke, despite using the cursed seal, ended up with a Chidori in his chest. Uzumaki did all of that? Orochimaru asked. When Kabuto nodded, Orochimaru added as an afterthought, well, it's a good thing that he hates Konoha as much as I do. I actually feel a little better with him not agreeing to our alliance, not to mention losing to his captain of the guard. Kakashi Hitaki is dead, Kabuto reported. Naruto killed him. No, Zabuza Momoki, the demon of the mist, took his head. Orochimaru took a moment to take all of the news in. This might work to our advantage. If there is one thing I can count on, is that dear Sasuke cannot stand the fact that someone like Naruto is stronger than him. I may be able to get my body just yet. Should I organize a retrieval team and intercept him from Tsunade and the others? No, I can wait a while longer. What about Naruto and the Western Empire? Orochimaru thought about it for a moment. It's clear that we are not on Naruto and Hinata's radar and that they hate Konoha as much as we do. So we will leave them and their merchants along for the time being. Send word to the Raikage. Uzumaki and the Western Empire is off limits. His smile grew sinister. But if Sasuke refuses to come to my side, I can always be an emperor. Konohagakure no Sato, at the same time. It had been midnight when Tsunade and the remains of her forces had returned to Konoha. Since that time, she, along with Shizune and Sakura, had been hard at work stabilizing the badly injured shinobi, even going as far as taking a soldier pill in order to keep working. As she had been busy with Jiraiya, Shizune and Sakura had been tasked along with the doctors in treating the injured shinobi, as well as compiling a casualty list of the ANBU who were killed. Konoha Hospital, dawn. Shizune and Sakura gave their reports to Tsunade, who had just finished treating Jiraiya. 16 ANBU dead, Sakura reported as she handed Tsunade a scroll. Here are their names. Kakashi Hitaki Kia. Tsunade nodded grimly. She had brought 200 Junin-level shinobi with her to Suna, and yet when Naruto and Hinata had used their forces to block them from interfering at Blade and Jutsu Point. Seeing as how the Junin were outnumbered and outmatched, the remaining Junin had no choice but to comply. Tsunade found them outside Suna, and ordered them to help with the wounded and the dead, after demoting them to Chunin. They were not allowed to take Kakashi's body, as that was incinerated in one of the many pyres outside of Suna. And the others? Tsunade asked. Shizune went over her notes. Out of the group that was attacked by Uzumaki and his wife, Kurenai Sarutobi and Shino Aburame were affected by an unknown type of poison which makes the chakra and nervous systems go haywire. It's not lethal, but it is extremely effective. Were you able to get samples? Tsunade asked. Sakura shook her head. The poison works pretty fast. Despite taking blood samples from both Sarutobi and Aburame, there was no poison in their system. Either way, both of them will be out of action for about a week until they recover. Considering what has happened to the others, they got off lucky. And the others? First up is Mido Guy, Shizune reported. There was too much damage from where Uzumaki had crushed his spine. He won't be able to walk again. His shinobi career is finished. Tsunade nodded grimly. Continue. Asuma Sarutobi's right hand was crushed, along with his trench knife, which proved to be quite a challenge for the doctors to remove without having to remove the hand altogether, Shizune said. We were able to save his hand, but every bone in his finger has been broken. He also has a broken left arm at the elbow. He's looking at several months of recovery. Sakura continued after that. Kiba Inuzuka has suffered several broken bones, including those in his left leg, a broken radius and a broken wrist. Akamaru had been placed in the care of the Inuzuka vets. Yamato's jaw is broken in 3 places, and a fractured chest bone. Sasuke Uchiha was the worst off. A Chidori-sized hole in his chest, half of the ribs are either broken or fractured, and the electricity from the jutsu has overloaded his nervous system and chakra reserves. How long will he be out? Tsunade asked. A month and a half at the most, Sakura replied. What about you? Are you okay? That brat gave me a concussion when he suplexed me, Tsunade grated. Jiraiya, we couldn't save his arm. He died on me twice, but I managed to revive him. She sighed in frustration. How in the hell could he have gotten so powerful? Sensei made sure that we conditioned him, not to mention that we stunted his growth. He was always the unpredictable one, Sakura admitted. He beat Kiba and Neji in the exams. He should not have that kind of power, Sakura, Shizune said. Such power could be turned against us in the long run. If there is anything I know about the Uzumaki, is that they never forget who wrongs them. You forget that I am also of the Uzumaki, as Mito was my grandmother, Tsunade pointed out. But first and foremost, I am a Senju. Naruto has made it clear that he is a major threat to the Leaf. The bodies of Hitaki and the ANBU Slan has made that point very clear. Monitor Jiraiya and the others. I must tell the council that Uzumaki in the West is now a certified threat. Shizune and Sakura nodded as Tsunade vanished down the corridor. Underneath Konohagakure, hours later. Inside his inner sanctum, Danzu Shimura was furious. The Sharingan in his eye was spinning, his body leaking killer intent. The man known as the Darkness of Shinobi had just returned from an emergency council meeting in which Tsunade had delivered some devastating news. Naruto Uzumaki was the Emperor of the West. The dead last, the Kyuubi brat, was the most powerful man on the Western continent. The same Naruto Uzumaki who had killed Honmura and Koharu over a year ago. The same Naruto Uzumaki who had rendered him helpless inside his own underground chambers. The same Naruto Uzumaki who can lead an army into Konoha and crush it under his heel. People change in the 7 years following their banishment, as Danzu's co-conspirators found out the hard way. The council had been in an uproar when the revelation was revealed. The civilian side of the council wanted Tsunade to declare war on the Empire, or by extension, their allies in spring, water and wind. That idea was shot down by the clans, as they would be outnumbered 5 to 1. But Danzo still could not do anything, as Naruto still had the evidence pertaining to the stolen bloodlines he had on his person, lest he earned the wrath of the Godime and the last Uchiha. All he could do now is plan. OMAKE. Hikato no Naruto. Snafu's notes, kudos to Azure Dragon of the East for inspiring this idea via PM. Naruto's response to Sasuke's attack was to activate his Rinnegan, falling back into the Deva path. Shinra, Tensei. Sasuke's eyes showed complete shock as the black flames were extinguished. In a futile gesture, he raised his hands to block the incoming pressure wave, only to find himself once again on the receiving end of the Shinra Tensei, Naruto's jutsu flinging him back into a wall. Naruto was upon him in an instant. One punch to the sternum had caused Sasuke to cough up blood. This was followed by Naruto unloading a vicious barrage of punches into Sasuke's chest and torso, Sasuke's body jerking like a rag doll with each blow. The coup de grace came with Naruto punching Sasuke through the wall. Looks like I win again, Naruto said smugly. Turning from the mangled Uchiha, Naruto walked back into the street. Then he stopped and turned around. Sasuke, despite being badly injured, stumbled out of the hole Naruto had made with his body. Dope, we are not done yet. I'll give you this much. You're persistent, Naruto admitted, but the battle is over. You lost. The Sannin lost. It's over. Damn you. Damn you. Sasuke snarled as the cursed seal went into overdrive as he went into stage 2 of the cursed seal. His skin turned into a shade of dark grey, the lips a shade of blue. A black 4-point star-like mark appeared in between his eyes, above the bridge of his nose. His hair had gotten longer, ending at his waist. The eyes no longer had the Sharingan. The sclerae turned black, the irides now yellow. Last, with a large webbed hand-shaped wings on his back. Die Naruto. Sasuke screamed as he rose into the air, right before diving at Naruto, claws outstretched, ready to rip Naruto apart. Had Sasuke been paying any attention, he would have noticed the smirk on Naruto's face. Or the fact that his killer intent was radiating from his body like a flame, literally burning off his haori, flak vest and mesh shirt, revealing his own scarred torso. Think the scars which Kazuya Mishima has sans the large scar on his chest. The Emperor met him in midair, his foot smashing against the demonic-looking Uchiha's face, knocking him back. As Sasuke got back to his feet, Naruto struck. A tada 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 tada. Crunch 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 crunch. As Tsunade and Jiraiya watched in complete shock and awe, Naruto unleashed a massive barrage of punches with both hands, striking at the Uchiha's 708 acupressure points. To anyone watching this, it was as if Naruto had moved at an inhuman speed, even faster than Rock Lee and Guy combined as he pummeled Sasuke with his fists, the Uchiha's body jerking around violently like a rag doll from the impact of the blows. Then Naruto switched from his hands to one foot, kicking Sasuke just as fast. Quote dot dot dot. Tada 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 tada. Crunch 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 crunch. Right before resuming punching him again, only this time with one hand, not slowing down. Quote dot dot dot. Tada 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 tada. Crunch 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 crunch. And Naruto returned to using his other hand like he had done earlier at the start of the technique. Wa-ta. Ka-pow. The final blow had knocked Sasuke ass overhead, crashing in front of Tsunade and Jiraiya. Imperial style, 100 crack fist, Naruto said as he retrieved his cage-style hat. With a flourish, he placed it on his head, turned around and began to walk away. It's over for you, Sasuke. Dope. Once again, Naruto stopped in mid-step, but did not turn around. Sasuke, still in stage 2, got back to his feet, shrugging off Tsunade's attempts to help him. We're not done yet, dope. He shouted as he coughed up blood. Don't you turn your back on me. Slowly, Naruto turned his head. I got 4 words for you, team. Ome wa mu shindiru. You are already dead. Is that so? Sasuke snarled back, taking a step forward, then paused as his body began to jerk and twitch violently. Sasuke screamed as he felt his body's internal organs begin to break down, his head swelling to inhuman proportions, the hair falling out of his deformed skull. His torso also began to swell as he fell to his knees. Uzumaki. Boom. That was Sasuke's final word as his head literally exploded, with his body following soon afterward. All that remained of Sasuke was everything from the waist down, splattering Tsunade and Jiraiya with bits and pieces of gore. Sasuke's legs twitched before finally going still. Damn it, Naruto cursed. That was the 3rd vest and haori I destroyed this week. Now I need a new one. Chapter 3. Snafu's notes, close to 200 reviews and I have written only 6 chapters. Yay me, I survived the Mayan apocalypse and all I got to show for it is bad pizza and even worse liquor. BAH, I originally said that I would not be posting a new chapter until the beginning of the new year, but I couldn't help myself. So I flipped a coin. Heads, I would post this chapter now. Tails, I would wait. As you can see, heads won. 3 weeks had passed since the conclusion of the Akatsuki invasion of Suna, in which the organization of S-class missing nin led by Obito Uchiha was destroyed, and the Konoha imperial conflict, in which a group of high-ranking shinobi led by 2 of the Sannin, picked a fight with the emperor and his wife, the empress consort, resulting in the deaths of 16 ANBU Black Ops, the maiming of several high-ranking Junin and the death of Kakashi Hitaki. Upon their return to the west, Naruto had taken Obito Uchiha to the sword, which was followed by Kurama incinerating his body. As a final indignity, Naruto had pissed on the ashes. In the month following that incident, Konoha's standing as the strongest of the shinobi villages in the east has plummeted. Suna had taken Konoha's spot as the strongest of the shinobi villages, with both Konoha and Iwa tied for number 2. With Konoha knocked down a peg, Naruto and Hinata initiated Imperial Protocol 110,482. Originally called Operation Kill the Barkers as a joke between Naruto and Hinata, Imperial Protocol 110,482, also known as Operation Scorched Leaf, was a series of plans developed by Naruto and Hinata which would in the end lead to Konoha's destruction. Sending in his army would be too tedious for Naruto, which is why he came up with this plan. Once Naruto and Hinata became the rulers of the empire, the plans were revised and revamped. Following their return to Kimen, Naruto and Hinata had put their plan into action. A week after returning to Kimen, Naruto had sent out a series of scrolls detailing not only the failed Akatsuki invasion of Suna and the confrontation between the Empire and the Konoha shinobi, but also details in regards to the Akatsuki, Obito Uchiha and Operation Moon Eye. The results were as Naruto and Hinata had expected, which had damaged Konoha even further, sowing mistrust in the leaf. Of course, Tsunade and the Fire Lord denied the accusations, saying that what Naruto was doing was out of spite. But seeing as how they had favored a hero over a potential traitor, their denials fell on deaf ears. In response to the Imperial nation's actions, Tsunade, Jiraiya, and the Fire Daimyo responded by revealing that the Western Empire had the Jinchuuriki in their possession, and that they had fought in the Suna-Akatsuki War, hoping to use the political pressure from the daimyos and the other cages to force Naruto into surrendering the Jinchuuriki back to their respective villages. However, Tsunade was a day late and a ryo short. The daimyos which had the major villages had already knew that Naruto and Hinata had long since retrieved the Jinchuuriki, and allowed him to do so in exchange for a promise of non-aggression on his end. Should the cages raise a stink over the loss of the Jinchuuriki, then the daimyos will pull them back in line. This did not sit well with Tsunade and Jiraiya. Konohagakure no Sato, Fire Country. Jiraiya walked into the office. The one-armed Sannin's expression was grim, and has been grim since the fateful mission into Suna. The stump on where his arm used to be served as a reminder of what Naruto had become. Tsunade looked up from her paperwork. "Well, did you hear anything?" she demanded. "Bad news all around," replied Jiraiya. "From what my informants have told me, it appears that the brat is 2 steps ahead of us. The daimyos have long known that Naruto had taken the Jinchuuriki. In fact, they allowed him to do so in exchange of a promise of non-aggression on his end. Which means that their respective cages can't do anything," Tsunade seethed. "What about Naruto and Hinata's bingo book entries?" Jiraiya shook his head. "They were voided out. The Gaki and the Hyuga have been recognized as rulers of a sovereign nation, which, as you know, carries automatic diplomatic immunity. Honestly, I never expected Naruto to be this cunning. Whatever he thinks of, he knows how to counterattack." He looked at his stump of an arm before turning back to his former teammate. "But we still have one final card left to play, Jiraiya," Tsunade said. "The Cage Summit. Think it will work?" Jiraiya asked. "Konoha is no longer the strongest of the shinobi villages," Tsunade said. "Hitaki is dead, Guy is a cripple, and both Sarutobi and Yamato are in rehab. Aside from the fact that we lost 4 clans and Orochimaru is launching hit-and-run attacks over the border, thinning out our numbers even further, now that he has not to worry about the Akatsuki. You know what they are calling Naruto now, seeing as how he was responsible for the destruction of the Akatsuki. They are calling him the Akatsuki Killer. I don't care what they call him," Tsunade snapped. "He is a threat to not only Konoha, but to all of Fire Country." "I agree," Jiraiya said. "Right now, my informants are looking into the Pekara merchant house branches in Wind, Wave, Tea and Spring. So far, all we got are trade routes. Nothing concrete. Where is the Cage Summit being held?" "Iron Country," Tsunade replied. "General Mifune has agreed to play as host and mediator to the other cages. The meeting is to take place 3 weeks from now. You will remain here as acting cage in my stead while I take 2 bodyguards, as per the conditions set by Mifune." "Who are you taking with you?" asked Jiraiya. "Danzu has offered 2 of his private security corps to accompany me, but I seriously don't trust him. Kiba Inuzuka is still out on the inactive list, so I will take the Inuzuka matriarch and Sakura Haruno, as she was the least wounded shinobi out of the bunch. That brat has been lucky for a while now, but this time, his luck will run out once I turn the other cages against him. And the Jinchuuriki under his control." Tsunade huffed. "The tailed beasts were given to the other shinobi villages by my grandfather in order to keep the peace once they were tamed. By extension, the Jinchuuriki are the property of the Senju clan, which means that they belong to me. That brat will have no other option but to surrender the Jinchuuriki over to me, or else he will suffer the consequences." Jiraiya sighed. "If this was the same brat that was a genin, then yeah, Naruto would not be a match for us. Now, he is an unknown, Tsunade. He is no longer the same brat that Sensei wanted to be Konoha's weapon. Because he is an unknown, that makes him even more dangerous. He gestured to his stump. Look what he did to me. Look what he did to Asuma, Guy and Yamato. Hitaki is dead, and he was one of our strongest shinobi. He could have killed us back in sooner, but chose not to, and it was not because that this was his former home. Are you saying that he spared all of us for a specific reason? Tsunade asked. It looks that way, the one-armed sage replied. Maybe he wants us to suffer, or maybe he wants to destroy us himself. The kid was known to be unpredictable. He made the impossible possible. He beaten the Inuzuka heir and the Hyuga prodigy in the Chuunin exams. Hell, from what Sasuke had told me, he unlocked the power of the Rinnegan during their first battle at the valley. The fact that he can fight without relying on it as a crutch makes him even more dangerous than Itachi, Obito and Sasuke combined. Jiraiya remembered Naruto's words that day and sooner after he and Hinata and Zabuza had came out on top following their confrontation. You call this hatred, I call it retribution. You say this is vengeance. This is justice. But this is only the beginning, you hag. This is the beginning of the end for the Leaf. Go back to Konoha and tell them that the dead last has returned. Tell them that as the Yellow Flash brought Konoha's rise to power, the Emperor of the Six Paths will bring about its reckoning. You think he could reach out to Orochimaru? Tsunade asked. Jiraiya shook his head. I don't think so. I think it's safe to say that he is no more of a fan of that snake than the both of us. In the meantime, I'm heading for the Fire Capital to update the Fire Daimyo on the situation. Afterward, I'm going to check on some of my contacts in Tanzuka. Tsunade nodded and dismissed Jiraiya. Imperial Complex, Palace Gardens. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze watched with a smile as Hinata and Tenten exchanged gossip whilst sitting in the shade of the sakura trees. Hazashi and Minato were in their respective laps, while Hayashi and Neji fussed over the two children. He looks just like you, Mifune said, standing at the Emperor's side. Fatherhood suits you. I'm glad you think so, General, the Emperor replied. His expression had gotten serious as he turned to the old samurai. In spite of everything, this was not a social call. There is a reason why you decided to come to Kimen rather than contact my informants and spies in the east. Several days earlier, General Mifune and a group of bodyguards had visited Kimen. Sonshi had received his longtime rival warmly, even going as far as to holding a feast in his rival's honor at his estate. On Friday, the day of the local tournaments, Sonshi and Mifune had fought in the arena. Naruto, Hinata and the Imperial Council were among those in attendance. The battle had ended in a draw, but had left the old men in good spirits. This was Naruto's second encounter with the Iron Country chief. The first time he had met Mifune was through Eiji Kibagami, when Mifune visited Kimen the first time to sign a trade agreement, which allowed the Empire to establish a Pekara outpost in Iron Country in exchange for reduced prices for their goods. The second time Mifune had came to the Imperial Complex, he had some information for the Emperor and Empress Consort. Information regarding Konoha. Once again, your intuition proves to be correct, Mifune confirmed. Your actions in Suna towards your former village has caught the eye of the other villagers. The Godheim Hokage has called for a summit of the cages. I have been asked to host it, not to mention playing the role of mediator. And you agreed to do so? Yes, and it just so happens that the summit falls exactly on the same day as you and your wife are due for your annual inspection of the Pekara Merchant Branch in Iron Country, which is 1 month from now. Naruto nodded in understanding. Are you suggesting that I crash the summit, General? The old man smirked. Unofficially, yes. Officially, you know the rules. Interesting, Naruto said. You said that only 2 bodyguards can come with me. Mifune nodded. Looks like you can expect my wife and I to the summit, General, Naruto said. Thanks for the information. Inside the Imperial Palace, later. So what did Mifune wanted to talk with you about? Hinata asked as she put Minato to bed for the night. Their 1-year-old son had so much energy. And now, he was tucked out. Minato let out a cute little yawn before settling in for the night. Naruto watched as Hinata tended to their son. Mifune dropped some interesting news in regards to the east, he replied. The old hag has called for a cage summit. Senju plans on trying to get the cages on her side, Hinata said. Maybe even try and put pressure on us since they know we have the Jinchuuriki here. I was thinking the same thing, Naruto said. I knew there was a reason why I married you. Hinata turned to her husband and smiled. Without me, you would get into trouble and be very miserable. So what do you plan on doing? She asked. The look on Naruto's face said it all. You're going to crash the summit, aren't you? Yup. Hinata pouted. I see that you are not going to change your mind. Well, since you're going, I might as well come along. There is this cheongsam that I want to wear for the occasion. What were the conditions that Mifune had set? 2 bodyguards can come along. So I will bring Mochizuki and Sana. Hinata nodded. Naruto, back in Suna when we confronted Tsunade and the others, why didn't you kill Sasuke? Why did you spare his life instead? I know he shoved a Chidori into your chest during the retrieval mission, but why not just kill him and be done with it? I think Yugito's training has rubbed off on you, Naruto mused as he walked over to the nightstand drawer. You should have been a Hellcat instead of a medic nin. Unlocking the seals which kept the drawer locked, he opened it and pulled out 2 black books, one containing the insignia of the leaf, the other containing the insignia of Danzu's root Anbu. Naruto began to explain. The first time I returned to the leaf, I assassinated Honmura and Koharu. I got the first book from Danzu detailing his crimes he had done in the name of the leaf. The second book, I stole from the Hokage's office when I snuck back in to retrieve my parents' ashes after spiking her sake with laxatives. Blowing up the Hokage monument was a bonus. Hinata began to leaf through the pages of the Hokage Black Book. And when were you going to tell me about this? She asked. I did tell you, remember. Sarutobi and those 2 idiot students of his have plenty of secrets. Oh, Hinata continued to flip through the pages. Then she stopped. Son of a bitch. Naruto knew that tone in her voice in an instant. If Hinata spoke in a tone that showed she was pissed, violence and in the most extreme cases, death would most likely ensue. Hinata looked angry, and she had a very good reason why. Sarutobi, Jiraiya and those 2 relics had a hand in my attempted kidnapping. The incident with Kumo. Hinata nodded. Sarutobi tried to sell me out. What Hinata was speaking of was the incident known as the Hyuga affair. Hinata had nearly been kidnapped by the Kumo ambassador, had it not been for her father, who had killed the kidnapper. Kumo had threatened war in retaliation, unless Konoha surrendered the Hyuga clan head. Hazashi had went in Hayashi's place, as the caged bird seal would rob Kumo of learning of the Byakugan, and because he was Hayashi's twin brother, so Kumo did not know the difference. Well, it's a good thing that he died while fighting Orochimaru, didn't he? Naruto said as he looked through Danzu's black book. You still haven't answered my question about Sasuke, Hinata said. Turn to page 49. Hinata did as she was asked. Operation Downfall. The Uchiha was planning a coup d'etat, Naruto said as Hinata had read the blackout orders. Sarutobi, Danzu, those 2 old bastards and Jiraiya had ordered Itachi to butcher the entire clan, save for Sasuke. What they don't know is that Obito had helped in the slaughter. The reason why Sasuke is still alive is simple, Haim. Konoha's destruction will not come from us. It's going to come from Sasuke, Hinata finished. By having Konoha and Fire Country focus their attention on me, they will not suspect the Uchiha of stabbing them in the back. Konoha knows that the Imperial Nation is a threat to them. Danzu tried to assassinate us, and failed. Tsunade lost face when she attacked us in Suna. Orochimaru will do his part in keeping pressure on Konoha. More than likely, he knows about the both of us, but since we hate Konoha as much as he does, he won't do anything that would cause us to turn our attention to him. Naruto sat down beside Hinata. Even back when we were under Hatake, Sasuke sees himself as an elite because of his clan name and because of his Sharingan. What he values is power and influence. If Konoha does not give him what he wants, or if it appears to be weak, he will go elsewhere for the power that he thinks he so rightfully deserves. And seeing as how I, the former dead last of the cell, is clearly stronger than he is, that is something that will eat at him. Which is why he tried to go to Orochimaru the first time, Hinata said. When Naruto nodded, Hinata continued. And if he tries to defect to Orochimaru a second time? Naruto grinned. This time, he would most likely succeed. All Sasuke needs is a push in the right direction, which is where these 2 black books come in. But I don't plan on driving him to the snake just yet. That won't happen until after the Imperial Kumite in 2 months' time. I will pit Sasuke against one of the 4 Devas, preferably against Rasu. Once Sasuke finds out that he is not as powerful as he fancies himself to be. Naruto gestured to the 2 books. He will find out the truth once I plant these inside his home. That Konoha has been using him as they once tried with me. He will run to Orochimaru. Only this time, there will be no retrieval team to stop him, as Orochimaru won't make the same mistake twice, Hinata said. Sasuke will flee to Orochimaru, and seeing as how Konoha was responsible for the destruction of his clan, he will bring down hell upon the leaf. She chuckled dryly. And we will watch the festivities from a safe distance, Naruto said. All we need is the popcorn. And regardless of how the battle will play out, be it Konoha ekes out a victory or the snake destroys Konoha, we move in and finish the leaf off once and for all. What about the Sannin? Had they honored my parents' final wishes instead of betraying me, then this would not have gone as far as it had did, her husband replied. Their time is over and they don't realize it. Elsewhere in the east, the aforementioned Sannin and Sasuke Uchiha sneezed. At the same time, the ominous feeling of dread had crept up their spines, as if the death god himself had sealed their fates. Iron Country. Iron Country was the only country in the elemental countries which had highly trained samurai instead of shinobi. The samurai there were descended from samurai who had emigrated from the war-torn west in search of a more peaceful life. The other shinobi villages had left it alone, as the samurai were not only tough, but Iron Country had a long-standing policy in not to interfere in the other country's affairs. Given its neutrality, the country was a perfect choice to host the Cage Summit. The location of the summit was held inside the Iron Capital, with General Mifune playing as host and mediator. As expected, the major players in the elemental countries were present for the meeting. From Mist, Godai Mizukage Mai Terumi and her bodyguards, Ao and Chojuro. From Iwa, Sandaime Tsuchikage Onoki of both scales and his bodyguards, his granddaughter Kuratsuchi and Akatsuchi. From Konoha, Godime Hokage Tsunade Senju and her bodyguards, Zuma Nezuka and Sakura Haruno. From Kumo, Godime Reikage i.e., puppet ruler Ohatsu Katsurugai and her bodyguards, which happened to be Oto shinobi disguised as Kumo Junin. From Suna, Godime Kazekage Gara of the Sands and his bodyguards and siblings Temari and Kankuro. Also present was the Emperor and Empress Consort of the Imperial Nation. Pekara Merchant House, Iron Country Branch. The Pekara Merchant House's Iron Branch was a walled compound located several blocks away from where the Cage Summit meeting was being held. Eiji Kibagami was instrumental in getting a trading alliance with Iron Country, as he had relatives living there. Inside one of the offices within the compound, Naruto and Hinata Namikas were finishing up their preparations. As this was a formal affair, Naruto and Hinata were dressed for the occasion. As Naruto had long since stopped wearing orange, his attire was mostly black, having embraced the Western style of clothing, vest, pants and boots. The tight collared shirt was white. His long coat hung on a rack, as did the black cage-style hat. Hinata was also finishing her own preparations. She was dressed in a red cheongsam dress with a black lotus pattern which showed off her curvaceous figure. A red rose was tucked inside her hair. She wore no makeup, which enhanced her beauty. The couple, along with their elite guard, had arrived in Iron Country via the Demon's Gate hours before the cages were due to arrive, as there was no place for the Imperial Nation's airship to land. Following the inspection of the Pekara compound, Naruto and Hinata made their preparations to crash the Cage Summit. Hinata turned to her husband, who had just slipped on his long coat. Ready. Naruto nodded as he placed the cage-style hat on his head. Ready. The Cage Summit. A massive council chamber, consisting of a round table in the center of the room. Iron Samurai guarded the room, making sure that everything remained civil between the 5 cages and their respective bodyguards. From Mifune's left, going clockwise, sat Godime Mizukage Terumi, Godime Hokage Senju, Sandime Tsuchikage Onoki, Godime Kazakage Gara of the Sand, and last, Godime Reikage Katsurugai. Flanking them with their respective bodyguards. There was a space that was directly opposite of Tsunade which was empty. For those of you who do not know who I am, Mifune began, I am Mifune, leader of Iron Country, and general of the samurai forces here. On behalf of the people of Iron Country, I welcome you to my home. I will be acting as mediator for this meeting of the cages. He turned to Tsunade. Godime Hokage, you have the floor. Thank you, General, Tsunade said. Clearing her throat, she began to speak. Fellow cages, the threat of the Akatsuki has passed with its destruction. But there is a new threat on the rise. A threat that can not only destabilize the fragile balance of the elemental countries, but can destroy them. Gaara's eyes narrowed, as did Mei's. They knew exactly what the Godime was speaking of. I am talking about the unified Western Empire and its so-called leaders, Naruto Uzumaki and Hinata Hyuga, Tsunade finished. From what Jiraiya has told me following his visit to the West, the Imperial Nation's military might is far more stronger than those of our villages combined. What the East has seen with the destruction of the Akatsuki was nothing but a sample of what Uzumaki can muster. I disagree with your claims, Lady Hokage, Gaara said, coming to the defense of his friend. Emperor Namikaze is not a threat to any one of us here. Your opinion of him has been biased ever since the day he was born. Your actions in banishing him following the retrieval mission of the Uchiha has shown that. Indeed, Onoki said, knowing full well that the Emperor was the son of the infamous Yellow Flash, as well as of the circumstances surrounding Uzumaki's banishment. Despite the stone's issues with the Yellow Flash, it makes no sense in banishing a genin when he was successful in completing his mission, while giving a pardon to the genin who attempted to defect to a potential traitor. Had this taken place in Iwa, the Uchiha runt would have been executed, Sharingan be damned. Second, had Uzumaki had any ill will towards any of us, Mei continued, then he would have invaded the East a long time ago. I agree with my Tsunade counterpart. Your opinion of him is flawed. His exploits in the East are of public knowledge. It was through him that the Leaf gained its many alliances. Ironic is it by the Uchiha that they were taken away. Tsunade gritted her teeth as she balled her hands into fists. That part was true. In any event, Katsurugai, from what I have observed, Uzumaki is not a threat to any of us. We all have heard of the reports coming from Suna. Yourself, Jiraiya, and several high-ranking shinobi confronted and fought the Emperor and Empress in the village streets. Onoki cackled. Oh, I would give anything to have been there. The look on your faces when the Gaki that you, Jiraiya and all of Konoha had written off as worthless must have been priceless. The Kyubi Jinchuuriki, the dead last, now discovered to be the Emperor of the West. Add the fact that both he and his wife had humbled you and your shinobi are a bonus. Humbled, Tsunade repeated, rising from her seat. Humbled, 16 of my ANBU are dead. Kakashi Hitaki, the last of the Yondaime students, is dead. Jiraiya, my teammate, lost his arm at his hands. One of my shinobi had his back broken in such a way that not even I could fix it. And there are the wounded. You want to pick a fight with me, Senju? Onoki taunted, hopping to his feet. You really shouldn't. Konoha is not looking very good now. You're no longer the strongest of the villagers. Not after your actions in Suna, which had left a black eye upon the leaf. Mifune cleared his throat, getting the attention of the 2 cages. His silent glare told them to stand down, of which the Sandaime and the Godime did. Behind Onoki, Kuretsuchi and Akatsuchi grinned. Personally, I would rather fight that brat who calls himself Emperor, instead of you, Tsunade said. He is nothing without that title, or the Rinnegan. I underestimated him the last time. It will not happen again. You really should be careful what you wish for, Godheim Hokage, a voice said from the door, causing everyone to turn to the now open doors. It may just backfire on you in the most extreme way. Stepping into the room, Longcoat fluttering behind him, was the Emperor and Empress of the Imperial Nation. Behind them were two of their bodyguards, a woman who was dressed similar to Tsunade with tattoos and a Saisebushi level on a Bugeisho identified by her khaki flak vest as a member of the Hellcats. Mifune rose from his chair. Emperor Namikas, Empress Namikas, you honor my home with your presence. May I ask what you and your wife are doing here? He asked, already knowing the answer to the question. Hinata and I are here on the tail end of my inspection tour of the Pekara merchant houses in the east, Naruto explained smoothly. As per to imperial tradition, we have come to pay our respects to the current ruler of the country. He looked around the room, studying the 5 cages and their bodyguards. It appears that my wife and I have come at an unexpected time. Quite the contrary, Mifune said. The topic was about the both of you in the Western Empire. Yes, Emperor, Tsunade said, pronouncing Naruto's title with sarcasm. We have some questions we would like answered. Naruto looked at his wife, who nodded. Of course, he said. There's nothing wrong with a small chat. Very good for the soul. 2 more chairs were brought in and placed beside the Godheim Raikage. Naruto and Hinata walked over and took their seats, Benazato and Sana standing behind the Emperor and Empress. Naruto removed his hat and placed it on the table, as with the other cages. Tsunade was doing her very best not to try and knock his head off, but she managed to keep her composure. For those of you who don't know who I am, or to those who are meeting me for the first time, Naruto began, I am Naruto Uzumaki Namikas, former genin of Konohagakure no Sato, now the first sovereign emperor of the unified Western Empire. And I am his wife, Hinata continued. Empress consort Hinata Hyuga Namikas. So, it's true what the Godheim Hokage says about you, isn't it? Onoki asked. You are the son of Minato Namikas. I am, Naruto replied. I am the legitimate heir of Minato Namikas and his wife, Kushina Uzumaki Namikas. He gestured to the 2 women behind him. The women accompanying us are part of our elite guard, Major Benazato Mochizuki and Sana Sonshi. What you may have heard about the Western Empire is more than likely true. Yes, I was banished by the Godheim Hokage of Konohagakure no Sato on trumped-up charges solely because I am the Jinchuuriki of the 9-tailed fox. Hinata came with me at her father's behest, in order to avoid being branded with the caged bird seal. Naruto could not reveal his trump card just yet, saying that he was the former Jinchuuriki of Kurama. Not yet. For 5 minutes, Naruto and Hinata had told the meeting of the cages of his trials and tribulations in the West. First, he had killed Rokubungi Oda, said to be the strongest of the warlords. He told them of the 2 years he had spent as a warlord, unifying the continent, and Hinata laying the foundation of what would be the Imperial Medic Program, which trained shinobi and samurai. He told them that following the Unification Wars, he and Hinata were the undisputed rulers of the West. That's it, Naruto finished. Hinata and I came from nothing. We clawed our way to the top of the mountain. The people recognized the both of us as the Emperor and Empress of the West. Clap, 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 clap. Everyone turned to Tsunade. She was clapping sarcastically, while Sum and Sakura had amused looks on their faces. Bravo, you can spin a wonderful story, brat. I think Jiraiya could use that in his next book. Naruto leaned back in his seat and chuckled. You of all people know that I never lie about my skills, hag. It just burns at you, doesn't it? To see Sarutobi's plans into conditioning me into being Konoha's perfect weapon backfire. That when you could not control me, you banished me and sent the ANBU after me. How does it feel, knowing that Sarutobi is turning over in his grave at seeing his plans unfulfilled? Be careful, Uzumaki, Tsunade warned, rising from her seat. I can just as easily crush you like a bug. You tried, remember? Naruto replied. And what was the end result? Oh, that's right. He ticked off on his fingers. 16 ANBU dead. 3 maimed Junin, 1 Sannin missing an arm. And Kakashi Hitaki dead. And that was me and Hinata without trying. I am not the same Gaki you once knew, Tsunade. You and all of Konoha should do well to remember that. The Akatsuki found out the hard way. You should be thanking me, Senju, for eliminating the Akatsuki. Wiping them out was probably the most important event in the history of the elemental countries. And what is for you? Onoki asked. Naruto shrugged his shoulders. Tuesday. Onoki chuckled. I like this kid. Granted that his father was the Yellow Flash, the kid got spirit. And Iwa respects strength and honor. That, and the Western herbal tea your merchants sell has done wonders for my bad back. We are getting off subject here, Tsunade said. There is still the matter of the Jinchuuriki. She leveled her gaze upon Naruto. Do you not deny that you have all of the Jinchuuriki in your possession? No, I will not deny it, Naruto said. With the exception of General Niai and the Godheim Kazekage, I admit that I retrieved the Jinchuuriki from here and offered them asylum within the Empire. Before Tsunade could say anything, Naruto continued. I did this with the blessings and consent of the daimyos of earth, lightning and water, in exchange for a pledge of non-aggression on my end, and with me promising never to unleash the power of the Jinchuuriki upon their countries and villages. By taking the Jinchuuriki out of the picture, the playing field of the elemental countries has been reset. And yet, you used them in the war against the Akatsuki, Sakura pointed out. You are a liar and a hypocrite. Naruto snapped his gaze upon his former teammate. I'm sorry, was I talking to you? Until I address you, Haruno, shut that hole between your nose and chin and reattach your lips to Senju's ass. Turning back to the assembled cages, he addressed them, ignoring that Tsume was holding Sakura back. Yes, I had the Jinchuuriki fight in the war with the Akatsuki, but I honored my promise not to unleash them upon the villages or the elemental countries. I asked them if they wanted some payback towards the Akatsuki and they agreed to come along. The daimyos may have agreed to your requests about the Jinchuuriki, but the fire daimyo didn't. And neither did I, Tsunade said. The tailed beasts, and by extension the Jinchuuriki, are the property of the Senju clan. My grandfather gave the Baiju to the other shinobi villages. As the granddaughter of Hashirama Senju, you will hand over the Baiju to me. And since you hold the strongest of the Baiju, I demand that you abdicate your throne and hand yourself over to face the justice of the leaf. Let me think about that. No, Naruto replied. You dare refuse me, Tsunade snarled, a Senju and descendant of the Six Paths. I do. You seem to forget your history. The Uzumaki are the direct descendants of the Six Paths sage, the original Jinchuuriki to the Ten Tails. He split the power of the Baiju into 9 beasts. You claim that just because of your family name, that the Jinchuuriki and by extension, Gaara and myself, are the property of the leaf. In any case, the Baiju are not your property. The Jinchuuriki are under my protection. The Senju and the Uchiha are not blood relatives to the Six Paths. He adopted them and trained them, but they are not of his blood. Onoki, Mei, Mifune and Katsurugai watched this soap opera play out between the Emperor and the Godime Hokage. I don't care what you think. The Jinchuuriki are the property of the Senju clan. This is not open for discussion. You will hand them over to me now. Naruto's next question caught Tsunade off guard. Did you see my mother the same way? What? Tsunade stuttered. It's a simple question. You of all people know that my mother was the Jinchuuriki to the fox, as was your grandmother was before her, Naruto continued. You blamed me for her death, when it was clear that it was Obito Uchiha who was responsible. Did you see my mother, your niece, as property to the Senju, despite her status? Answer the question, Senju. I don't have to answer that, Tsunade shot back. Of course you do, Naruto replied, his voice ice cold. Since as you claim that the Jinchuuriki are the property of the Senju, of which I, too am a member of since Mito Uzumaki is a member of the Uzumaki clan, did you see my mother as property of the leaf, despite her being the daimyo of Whirlpool, as well as your niece? Answer me, Senju. The tension in the room was thick. The other 4 cages watched as the standoff between the Godime Hokage and the Emperor of the West stared the other down. I see the answer in your eyes, Senju. Despite the fact that my mother was the ruler of Whirlpool, despite the fact you saw her as the daughter you never had, you did see her as property, Naruto said. So what if I did? Tsunade snarled. Kushina was like a daughter to me, yes, I admit. But she held the power of the Kyuubi. A power that belonged to the leaf. To my clan, not yours. Temper, Senju, Naruto chided. You really shouldn't get your blood pressure up at your age. But if you continue down this road, thinking that Konoha is still the strongest of the shinobi villages when it is not, seeing as how 4 of its clans and over 200 Junin are under my protection, you are sadly mistaken. The only reason why I haven't decided to wipe the leaf from the map is because seeing you in the village suffer because of your actions amuse me. But make no mistake, Senju. You, nor Konoha, nor the Fire Daimyo are in no position to make demands of myself or of the Imperial Nation. He slowly rose from his chair, directing his killer intent at Tsunade and her bodyguards, his eyes shimmering into the Rinnegan, his voice becoming ice cold. If you wish to go to war, I'll be more than happy to oblige you. You are already on thin ice with me for betraying not only my parents but also the Uzumaki clan. If you declare war on the Empire out of some misguided attempt at revenge, Gaara's desert burial will look merciful compared to what the Imperial Nation can do. You go to war with me, I guarantee that Konohagakure will be nothing more than a memory. The leaf will be nothing more but a rumor. It will have never existed. Yeah, scary, Gaara thought. Even Shukaku agreed with his tenant. This one agrees. Note to self, do not piss the Emperor off, Onoki and Kuretsuchi both thought at the same time. Onoki was glad that he had let the old hatred of the Yondaime die. It was known that his son was the leader of the West and that he hated Konoha with a passion. So long as the West honored the non-aggression pact, then Iwa had no problem with the Empire. Lord Orochimaru will have to be notified of this, Katsurugai thought. Impressive, Namikaze, Mei thought. His threat made clear, Naruto's eyes went back to normal. Retrieving his hat, he placed it on his head as Hinata stood up. Turning to Mifune, he said, General Mifune, on behalf of the unified West, we thank you for your hospitality. Mifune nodded, giving one more glare to Tsunade and her bodyguards. The Imperial group strode to the door, but stopped. Oh, I almost forgot, Naruto said, turning around. He turned to Sana, and nodded. Sana produced 6 scrolls and tossed them to each of the cages, who caught them. What's this? Onoki asked, not daring to open the scroll. In 2 months, the Unification Festival will take place, Naruto explained. The highlight of the festival is the Imperial Kumite, which is held in South Aikiyama. What you hold in your hands is an invitation to the tournament. No cage can participate. Bring 4 of your strongest shinobi and samurai to compete. The winner of the tournament will earn 20 million ryo for their respective village and the title of champion. That invite you hold in your hands also promises safe conduct through the Imperial Nation. I'll be there, Tsunade said, just to see the look on your face when we show that the will of fire is strong enough to crush any and all challenges. Including your own fighters. The will of fire. Naruto repeated. Konoha's will of fire no longer burns. It has been extinguished by your hypocrisy, your fear, your bigotry, and your hatred. Tell me something, Senju, did the Leaf ever gain back any of those alliances that I earned for them during my time as a genin? Tsunade's response was to glare at Naruto. Didn't think so, Naruto said, looking smug. Half of the people in the East don't trust you, or Konoha, and for good reason. It would be bad for business to hire a village known for rewarding potential traitors and punishing heroes. Hopefully, I will see you all in South Akiyama. The other cages nodded and the Imperial group walked out of the meeting chambers. Naruto's smug grin never leaving his face. Konoha's downfall has begun. Chapter 4. Snafu's notes, to Soul-Embrace 2010, even though it is a bit late, yes, the Will Elizabeth wedding scene was referenced in this story in the form of Naruto and Hinata's wedding in South Akiyama. Would have been more funnier if I had hidden conducting it, as he is a priest, but Yugito will do. Last, I have modeled Akiyama Coliseum after the Conqueror's Coliseum from Soul Calibur 5. South Akiyama, Unified Western Empire, 2 months later. Following Naruto's appearance at the Cage Summit and him delivering the invites to the cages and Mifune, Tsunade had returned to Konoha and summoned the council to tell them of this recent development. Sasuke Uchiha was the first to volunteer with Danzu's backing. Yuga Uzuki and Asuma Sarutobi also signed on, as his rehab would be finished by then and he would be placed back on active duty. Last, was Sakura Haruno. Accompanying Tsunade and her team to South Akiyama was Jiraiya and a representative from the Fire Daimyo. South Akiyama was one of the southern region's largest cities, home to a thriving tourist industry. The largest city in the southern region was home to several casinos, geisha houses, and even a brothel. The city itself was built around a small mountain, the mountain itself now the largest stadium on the continent. It was also the site of the final battle of the Unification Wars, and the site of where Naruto and Hinata's forces had signed the treaty which ended the Unification Wars and had brought a new age to the west. Tez Point, the memorial shrine built to honor the casualties of the Unification Wars, was located 3 miles away from where the treaty was signed. It was also the eve of the Imperial Kumite, the annual tournament that the unified Western Empire held once a year. The best of the best were invited to compete for honor, wealth and prestige in the Imperial Nation. It made the preliminary Chunin tournament that Konoha had held during Naruto and Hinata's time as genin look like a schoolyard fight. The Imperial Kumite was no holds barred, anything goes. Jutsu and weapons were allowed. Bloodline-based abilities were allowed, and the Akiyama Coliseum was specifically designed for that purpose. Neji Hyuga and Rock Lee had fought in the Imperial Kumite the first time in the previous year. Suffice to say, they both learned quick that the fighters played for keeps. Despite making it to the semi-finals, Neji was defeated by the year's previous champion, and Rock Lee was beaten by Takeshi Chiba. This time around, the former Raikage decided not to join in the fray, but rather watch from the sidelines. This year, however, the Kumite was different, as this time the 5 major shinobi villages were invited to the tournament. However, the tournament had a secondary purpose, as it had something to do with Operation Scorched Leaf. That secondary purpose was the humiliation of Konohagakure no Sato, the Godime Hokage, Fire Country and last, Sasuke Uchiha. With this final humiliation, Sasuke would do his part and leave for Otogakure no Sato. South Akiyama was also the summer home of the Emperor, the Imperial Villa being the summer palace of the Emperor and Empress Consort. A good portion of the summer was spent in the southern region, beginning at the tail end of the Unification Festival, as Naruto and Hinata inspected the Pekara merchant houses in the region and visited the villages. It was half the size of the Imperial Complex, but it was still spacious enough for the Namikaze clan and their guests. Naruto and Hinata Namikaze had arrived in South Akiyama a week earlier with their child, Minato. Hayashi Hyuga, Hanabi Hyuga, Neji and Tenten Hyuga also accompanied them, along with little Hazashi. In the year following their arrival in the West, Hayashi had become a respected member of the Imperial Council. Hanabi had taken over as head of the Hyuga clan and was a powerful kunoichi in her own right. It was even rumored that she was romantically involved with Takeshi Chiba. Neji had become the commander of the military police assigned to protect Kimen and the surrounding areas. His wife, Tenten, was a valued member of Yugito's Hellcats. Hayashi and the council knew of Operation Scorched Leaf, and had given Naruto and Hinata their full blessings on the matter. Aside from the occasional threat from Konohagakure and from the Fire Daimyo, they could do nothing. When Tsunade threatened to invade both Wave and Spring, Naruto had retaliated by threatening to unleash the Hiraishin upon Konohagakure's shinobi. If his father had killed 300 Iwa shinobi in the last war, then what would happen if he used the Hiraishin with a couple of shadow clones? Imperial Villa, South Akiyama, nighttime. Although smaller than the Imperial Palace in Kimen, the Imperial Villa was more than spacious enough to accommodate the extra guests. Aside from the Namikaze family, there were Naruto's in-laws and the Ino Shikacho trio came to visit, Haku tagging along with Ino. Ino was competing in the Imperial Kumite, as her opponent, through Naruto's machinations, was Sakura Haruno. Shikamaru and Chuji were not competing this year. Gaara's due to arrive tomorrow. From what Temari has told me, Shikamaru said as they sat inside the courtyard, Ino and Tenten were playing with Minato and Hazashi. The Godime will also be accompanied by representatives from the Wind Daimyo's council. Just in time for the start of the Kumite, Naruto said. Just so you know, Tsunade and the Konoha fire group has arrived earlier today, Ino continued. Sasuke was among the group. That, and Asuma almost got into a fight with Okajima-sensei when Asuma saw him with us. I know, Naruto replied. The Tengu came to me to, personally request, that he would be the one to fight Asuma in the Kumite. And I've granted it. Isn't this troublesome? I mean stacking the deck against Konoha on purpose. Shikamaru asked. If I wanted to be unfair, I would have the 4 Devas compete in the tournament, Naruto explained. But there's the other 4 shinobi villages. I really don't have to turn the odds in the West's favor. Inviting the other nations here is nothing more than an act of goodwill, to show the naysayers that my intentions are genuine. Well, that and the prize money is far too tempting to ignore. Jiraiya has been seen sneaking around Akiyama, Hayashi said. My guess is to check out the competition, to see which of the fighters from here and from the other villages is a major threat to Konoha winning. 1-year-old Minato gurgled while in Ino's arms. Wouldn't put it past the perv to try and sneak in here, Naruto said. Following the confrontation in Iron Country, Jiraiya had found out through a contact of his in Spring Country that Koyuki was the godson to Naruto and Hinata's child, who was named after Konoha's greatest hero. Jiraiya was furious, as was Tsunade. But they could not do anything, as Tsunade remembered Naruto's threat from the Cage Summit. If you wish to go to war, I'll be more than happy to oblige you. You are already on thin ice with me for betraying not only my parents but also the Uzumaki clan. If you declare war on the Empire out of some misguided attempt at revenge, Gaara's desert burial will look merciful compared to what the Imperial nation can do. You go to war with me, I guarantee that Konohagakure will be nothing more than a memory. The leaf will be nothing more but a rumor. It will have never existed. Hayashi decided to change the subject. So this is the city where you and Naruto had gotten married during the final battle. When his daughter and son-in-law nodded, he went on. You know, Minato proposed to Kushina in the midst of a skirmish with a group of Nukenin just as the last shinobi war had started. I was there, as I was your father's former teammate. Seeing as how the others were looking on in interest, Naruto and Hinata nodded. The Emperor took Minato from Ino as Hinata began to tell the story, the baby gurgling as it took handfuls of his father's hair. South Akiyama was the final stronghold of the remaining 3 warlords, Hinata began. We had been fighting long and hard for 2 long years, uniting the West. South Akiyama was the last. Winner takes all. If we won, then the West would finally be at peace. If we lost, then the West would revert back to where we had found it when we arrived. The 3 warlords, Aboa, Rama and Joe, were minor warlords, but they combined their forces and fortified the city. Always, before a battle, Naruto would offer terms to his opponents. The terms of surrender were generous, as they had always been, which was the main reason why we were successful to begin with, come to his side willingly and fight for a greater cause, to bring peace to the lands. Joe was the smart one. He came to our side. Aboa and Rama wanted a fight, and we obliged. The battle raged for 3 hours, Naruto continued, smiling both at his son, who was now asleep and at the memory. Aboa and Rama were holed up inside the stadium, and we had the place surrounded. It was Kurama, Hinata, Haku, Zabuza and myself leading the charge. Flashback. South Akiyama, the conclusion of the Unification Wars. Naruto Namikaze and Hinata Hyuga were fighting back-to-back, Naruto with his Okatana and Hiraishin kunais, while Hinata had her Byakugan activated and kukri knives in her hands. Nearby, Zabuza Mamaki and Haku were fighting with members of Zabuza's Demon Brigade and Yugito Nii teamed up with Kurama in taking down the enemy troops. Suddenly, Naruto had a moment of inspiration. Fortune favors the bold, as Sonshi once told him. He spun Hinata around, slashing at a samurai with his Okatana. Hinata, marry me. Had this been at any other time, Hinata would have squealed like a schoolgirl. Had she been a genin, she would have fainted. But they were in the middle of a heated battle, one that would forever decide the fate of the West. Now, this isn't the best time. She shouted back. Are you kidding? Naruto shot back, blocking an incoming blade with his sword and stabbing the offending samurai with his kunai, leaving it embedded in his throat. Now may be the only time. I love you, Hinata, and I've made my choice. What's yours? Hinata's Byakugan deactivated. She had admired Naruto for a long time, and that admiration had turned to love following their banishment. He believed in her, and he loved her. In return, she loved him back. Kurama, Hinata shouted to the red-headed woman. Marry us. Her 9 foxtails waving around her body as if they had a life of their own, Kurama had slashed her way through a group of shinobi, even going as far as to impale them and fling their bodies away by using her tails. I'm indisposed at the moment. Naruto saw that Yugito was close by, fighting on a raised platform alongside Zabuza. Yugito, he shouted, taking Hinata's hand. Marry us. Now. Now, was Yugito's reply. Yes, now, Hinata shouted, impaling a shinobi with her kukri. Make it quick. Fine then, Yugito shouted, Taking a minor break from the fighting, with Zabuza backing her, she conducted the impromptu ceremony as Naruto and Hinata continued to fight. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to nail your asses to the wall. Zabuza interrupted, impaling his opponent with the head-chopping cleaver before kicking him off the blade. After hacking several shinobi into Western kibble, Naruto grasped Hinata's free hand again. Do you, Hinata Hyuga, take me to be your husband? Hinata nodded eagerly. Yes. Awesome, Naruto rejoiced, right before planting a rasengan into a shinobi attempting to attack Hinata from behind. At the same time, Hinata flung her remaining kukri into another samurai trying to cheap-shot Naruto. Naruto retrieved Hinata's kukri and tossed it back to her. Do you, Naruto Namikas? Hinata began, pausing to juke and strike a shinobi in the heart, take me to be your wife. For better or worse, and in sickness and in health. You mean with the last part about health being less likely? Naruto replied. I do. Great. Hinata rejoiced as more fighting ensued, forcing the couple to fight back to back. As Hellcat General, Yugito concluded, I pronounce you husbandin. She stopped as she caught a kunai from the air and tossed it back to the offending party, killing her instantly. You may kiss. She attempted again, but had to flip off the platform to avoid being attacked from the sides. After dispatching the both of them with Zabuza's help, she tried to speak again. You may kiss. Once again, she was interrupted. However, Haku and his Ice Senbon had made the save. On the ground below, the fighting intensified as the body count around Naruto and Hinata grew, Naruto having to create some space using the Shinra Tensei, blowing the attackers back. This time, Yugito and Zabuza turned to the young couple. Just kiss. The former mist swordsman and the female Jinchuuriki shouted. Naruto grabbed Hinata with his free hand and pulled her close. I owe you a real wedding after this is all over, he said. I'll hold you to that, was Hinata's reply before they kissed. End flashback. After the impromptu ceremony, Naruto concluded, we managed to rout the remaining forces. Aboa and Rama saw that the fighting was futile and gave the order to stand down. A week later, they both formally surrendered, promising not to raise arms against us. With the declaration of surrender, the unification wars were at an end. A couple of days later, Hinata and I had a formal, private ceremony back in Kimen. 2 weeks after that, we were named Emperor and Empress Consort of the West. Tenten, cradling Hazashi, was amazed. That was just, wow, was all she said. Neji nodded. I'll say, he seconded. A wedding in the midst of battle. That must have been something. Troublesome, if you ask me, Shikamaru said. If Temari finds out, she'll probably demand why I did not propose to her the same way you did to Hinata during the Akatsuki invasion. Murasaki Shibuku immortalized our wedding in her last novel, Hinata said. You probably saw that scene in Koyuki's last film. I thought that looked familiar, Hayashi said, a fan of the Spring Daimyo's films. Naruto handed Minato to his grandfather. If you excuse us, Hayashi, he said as he and Hinata stood up. Hayashi nodded as his son-in-law led his daughter out of the room. Out in the Imperial Villa's gardens, Naruto enjoyed the South Akiyama night, his wife by his side. It was times like these that he could forget that he was the emperor, or that he was a warrior. He was just Naruto. This is nice. Remember the last time we were here for the first anniversary and Zabuza got drunk and tried to hit on Sana? Naruto asked. The one where Sonshi chased after him with his family sword screaming bloody murder. I remember that, the demon of Kimen being chased by a man twice his age, Hinata replied. Have I ever told you that I'm pregnant? Naruto shrugged his shoulders. Once, he replied. Hinata grinned and held up 2 fingers. Better make that twice, love. It then dawned on what Naruto was saying. Hinata was pregnant. Again, that's great, he said, as he picked her up and spun her around in the air before setting her down. Minato will have either a brother or sister. Meanwhile, sneaking into the Imperial Villa was easy enough for Jiraiya. He was, after all, Konoha's resident spymaster. On Tsunade's orders, he was to check around South Akiyama, and size up the competition from the other villages and the local fighters as well. Aside from the Western fighters, the main threat was one of the 4 Devas who has decided to enter the contest, the Shogun of the Violent Lightning himself, Rasu. Hayate Okajima, of which Asuma had a confrontation with earlier that day, was number 2. His recon mission complete, Jiraiya snuck into the Imperial Villa. As Jiraiya had found out, there were no guards, no type of security whatsoever. Even the Imperial complex was crawling with shinobi and samurai guards when Jiraiya and the others had came to Kimen a year earlier. The Imperial Villa had none. Probably because the Gaki doesn't think that anyone would not dare to break into his home, Jiraiya thought as he watched Naruto and Hinata from his hiding place within the gardens. Seriously, what kind of ruler is he not to have any kind of protection? Then again, Jiraiya had forgotten as to who he was dealing with. What Jiraiya did not know was that the Imperial Villa had not only a squad of Imperial guards on site but also a series of seals which served as a first response alarm to any intruders. Which is where Kurama steps in. Hey, old man. Jiraiya flinched as he felt a woman tap his shoulder. Cursing to himself at being caught, he slowly turned around. And found himself face to face with Kurama, the Baiju queen cracking her knuckles, giving the one-armed pervert a fanged grin. Ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight? Kurama asked, just as she chambered her arm back in. Pow! Chakra-powered fist met chin, and Jiraiya was launched on an impromptu aerial tour of South Akiyama. From their spot in the gardens, Naruto and Hinata watched as Kurama emerged from the woods. Naruto had knew that Jiraiya was there, which was why he had sent Kurama out to intercept him. So, Naruto began, "Where did you knock the old pervert to?" Kurama's grin grew as she gave them her answer. The Blue Dragon Resort was a hot springs resort located in the outskirts of the city. The Blue Dragon was originally a brothel before it had become a hot springs resort, its owner a former madam who saw that tourism was more profitable than flesh. Of course that meant that the other brothels had more business coming their way, but that was how business usually went. The Blue Dragon was full to capacity, with visiting dignitaries from throughout the region. As with most of the inns and hotels, the White Destiny being reserved for the visiting cages and their shinobi from the east. Mei Terumi, Kuretsuchi, Benazato Mochizuki, Sana Sonshi, Yugito Niai, and Kasumi Aihara were gathered around Murasaki Shikibu, the West's most beloved writer of poems and romantic stories. Born Fujiwara Takako, she had been born poor in the era before the arrival of Naruto and Hinata. At 15, she had gained the attention of a local warlord for her short stories and had gotten her a job in his court. When she turned 19, she had married his son, a samurai. That was 16 years ago. Now, her husband was a respected official responsible for maintaining order in the Shinoko region, and she was a celebrated writer. The Empress Consort was a huge fan of her work, while she had got to meet Spring Daimyo Kazuhana, who adopted some of her works into a couple of her films, thanks to the emperor. Murasaki was well loved and respected by the people in the empire. As Murasaki entertained her company with a story from her childhood, the moment was ruined when a white-haired, one-armed toad sage came screaming from the skies, landing in the waters with a splash, having been forcibly ejected from the imperial villa via Kurama's fist. When Jiraiya managed to crawl out of the water, he felt the killer intent wash over him like a tsunami. Sure, he had been caught peeping before and was belted with numerous wooden buckets. Instead, he found himself facing one furious Mizukage, an irate blonde Jinchuriki, her battle aura taking on the form of the Two Tails, two royally pissed granddaughters of the Tsuchikage and the legendary samurai respectively, the latter already having drawn her sword, one less than amused Snake Queen, her snakes coiled around her body, ready to strike, and one angry rider. As the angry women closed in, Jiraiya could only whimper in response for the inevitable beatdown that was to come. Inside the imperial villa, Shikamaru stopped in mid-drink and turned his attention elsewhere. "Troublesome," he said. What is it?" Hanabi asked. "I felt a disturbance," the lazy Nara replied, as if a man was screaming for mercy and was silenced. "I'd bet my mission salary that the bothersome bastard pissed off a woman, or several." Neji shrugged. "Better him than us." Shikamaru chuckled as he raised his cup. "I'll drink to that." In another inn somewhere in Akiyama, the sake cup in which Tsunade was drinking out of broke. "Why do I have the strange feeling that Jiraiya had done something stupid again?" she thought. Back at the Blue Dragon, the mangled, broken body of Jiraiya was embedded in the rocks. All he could manage to get out was, hurt. He would be taken to the hospital, and Tsunade would be notified of the incident, as well as being billed for the damages. Akiyama Coliseum. Akiyama Coliseum was the largest of the Imperial Nation's arenas. 3 times as big than the stadium Konoha uses for its Chunin exams and as tall as a 3-story building. It was said that as the first Jinchuriki, the Six Paths had built the arena out of a small mountain using the power of the 10 tails and reinforced it with seals. To anyone who had seen the stadium for the first time, it was a mesmerizing sight. The interior of the Colosseum was an impressive sight. Surrounded by crystal blue water, the arena itself a massive square platform, held in place by 4 giant statues of the Six Paths sage via stone chains. The arena was accessible only by bridge, then were retracted. Within the Colosseum's walls, a series of triage centers were located. Hinata's medic corps were on standby to tend to the injuries of the wounded fighters. The Imperial Kumite had 50 fighters, with 20 of them from the east. Before heading out into the stands, they had met with Anko Matarashi inside a meeting room underneath the stadium, who was explaining the rules of the Imperial Kumite, having herself competed in a couple of them. As Anko explained the rules, she ignored the Konohagakure shinobi, knowing full well of the fate that was in store for them. "You all have signed the non-disclosure agreements in which you could not blame the Imperial Nation for what happens in the tournament. This tournament is single-round elimination. The rules for the Kumite are simple: full contact, anything goes. Weapons and jutsu are allowed. Any bloodline-related abilities are allowed. The matches are one-on-one, and you can win by knockout, submission, knocking your opponent out of the arena, and my personal favorite, make your opponent say, 'Matt.'" "Matt," an Iwa shinobi parroted. "Saying, 'Matt,' is the same as saying, 'Uncle,'" Anko explained. "Forcing your opponent to say, 'Matt,' is to the loser, the most humiliating way to lose a match." From his place, Sasuke glared at Rasu, who ignored him as if he was a bug. "Good luck, cause you're going to need it," Anko finished. "And one more thing." Her face split into a maniacal grin. "Try not to die." At the northern end of the stadium was the booth reserved for the Emperor and Empress Consort, the Imperial Council, and their guests, taking up the top 2 rows of the Colosseum. The upper and lower sections of the massive booth had stairs for easier access. The cages of the east were present, each of them dressed in their robes of state and their respective hats. General Mifune was also present, but had decided not to let several of his men compete. Tsunade Senju was also present, along with Jiraiya, his remaining arm in a sling, broken leg in a cast, a neck brace around his neck and his jaw wide shut, and a representative of the Fire Lord's court and several of his guardian ninja. Guarding the two Sannin were Kurenai Yuhi and Yamato. Unknown to Tsunade and Jiraiya, but known to Naruto and Hinata, Kabuto Yakushi was also present, disguised as a member of the Raikage's personal guard. Kabuto was there to keep an eye out on Sasuke, and not to antagonize the Western Empire in any shape, form or fashion. Naruto was standing on the platform along with Hinata, taking in the sights of the crowd, absorbing the cheers of the crowd. From the stands, the Konoha group, Sasuke Uchiha, Asuma Sarutobi, Sakura Haruno and Yuga Uzuki, tried to radiate as much as killed intent, but the couple in the arena did not seem to notice. Naruto raised one hand, and the crowd instantly went silent. Using his chakra to amplify his voice, Naruto began to speak. It has been 3 long years since the beginning of a new era for all of us. A new era of peace, order and prosperity. 5 years ago, I was but a warlord with a dream. That dream was to unite this land, to bring about a peace which has not been seen since the time of my great ancestor, the Rikudo Sennin. Through our blood, sweat and tears, we have made that dream into a reality. Through our hard work, through our perseverance, the unified Western Empire has thrived. The audience erupted into cheers. Again, Naruto brought them into silence. Hinata spoke next. We are honored to have with us the Kages of the East, as well as the representatives of their respective daimyos. We hope that your experience here in the Western Empire is a pleasant one. To the brave men and women who are competing in the Imperial Kumite, my husband, I wish you the best of luck. You four are going to need it, Naruto thought darkly as he glared at the Konoha shinobi, his own cage-style hat hiding his face from view. From this moment on, this Colosseum is now your battleground, Hinata concluded. Let the Imperial Kumite begin. The crowd once again erupted into cheers as Naruto and Hinata returned to their booth via Shunshin. Inside the booth, sat the Imperial Council, the 5 Kages and the representatives from the daimyos. Also present was Koyuki Kazuhana, who was there alongside her husband, the Cage of Spring, Koiki Fujimura. Koiki had originally been Koyuki's bodyguard following Cell 7's mission into what was Snow Country, and had stepped down in order to become Cage of the village hidden in the snow. Of course, they both agreed on that their children would have her last name. Naruto and Hinata appeared inside the booth and took their seats. Minato, having been placed in Kurama's care, was handed off to his mother from Kurama. I must say, my boy, Onoki began, you know how to work the crowd here. It comes with practice, Naruto replied. Tsunade ignored the two men, having rather deeping to take a pull from a sake bottle. Down on the arena, Kintaro Kagami and Zabuza Momoki were having an exhibition match in the form of a sword fight. The demon of Kimen and the strongman of the Scorched Earth had a competitive, yet fierce rivalry stemming back from the Unification Wars. The Imperial Council and the 5 Kages watched as the two swordsmen dueled to the delight of the crowd. From the sidelines, the Konoha group watched the battle, leaking killer intent. To the 4, who were present in Suna during the Konoha Imperial conflict, the former Mist Swordsman was the one who had killed Hitaki. Inside the booth, the 5 Kages and the Imperial Council watched as the fight intensified. Zabuza has improved, May noted. Back in Mist, he was so hot-headed and rash. I think spending time in the West has done him some good. Don't worry, Naruto replied. He's still the sociopath you come to know and respect. In fact, the only one who can match him is Anko. Come to think of it, I think that Zabuza is quite the masochist. On the other side, sat the Godam Kazekage of Suna, Gaara. I believe congratulations are in order, he said. Matsuri has told me the news. Hinata is pregnant again. I should be congratulating you as well, as it appears that your wife is also expecting, Naruto replied. Out on the arena, the battle ended in a standoff, Zabuza and Kintaro's respective blades resting against the other's throats. The crowd erupted in cheers as both men took several steps back and bowed to one another before vanishing via Shunshin. So how long is the Imperial Kumite? May asked. It continues until a champion is crowned, Naruto said. I was the previous year's champion. Zabuza was the previous year's champion. And you or Hinata don't compete? Katsuragi asked. No, we do want to keep it fair, Hinata replied. My husband and I don't compete in the tournament. Neither do the visiting leaders of the villages. The Imperial Kumite is designed to promote healthy competition and goodwill within the empire. Whoever wins the Imperial Kumite is named champion, but cannot compete in the next year's Kumite. They have to wait until the year is up before competing again. As Hinata and Naruto explained how the Kumite worked, Jiraiya and Tsunade settled back in their seats, thinking that the Leaf had the tournament in the bag. Given that they had the last Uchiha, a former guardian ninja, the vice commander of the ANBU Black Ops unit, and the feral Inuzuka, they were complacent in their superiority. Just you wait, Gaki, Tsunade thought darkly. Konoha will come out on top in the Imperial Kumite. And watching you admit that Konoha is the strongest village in the east will be so sweet. As the tournament progressed, Konoha had advanced through the first round, but it had not been easy. Asuma Sarutobi had eliminated a fighter from Iwa. Sasuke Uchiha had defeated a low-ranking Imperial samurai. Sakura Haruno used her chakra-enhanced super strength to knock an Imperial ninja out of the ring. Yuga Uzuki managed to eke out a win by using the dance of the crescent moon on a mist shinobi. As Tsunade and the others watched, Kuretsuchi of Iwa, two of Mei's mist shinobi and Temari of Suna had also advanced through the tournament. On the Empire's side, were Ino Yamanaka, Hellcat members and Miko Himura and Tenten Hyuga. Rasu of the Violent Lightning also made it through the tournament, as did Hayato Okajima. His only intention for fighting was to pound Asuma Sarutobi into the ground. Rock Lee was defeated by Neji, who in turn was beaten by Rasu. Sasuke had succeeded in knocking Mist out of the competition, much to Mei's dismay. So ended day one of the Imperial Kumet. At one of South Aikiyama's training grounds, Sasuke Uchiha was going through a kata with his Chokuto. He was alone, as the others from Konoha were back at their hotel. Tsunade and Jiraiya had went to a bar to drink and plan for the next day. There was no plan, Sasuke had deduced. He was in the Dobe's backyard, and by winning the Imperial Kumet, he would give his former teammate a serious black eye. That would be the first. He would prove to the Empire that the Uchiha was superior. Then he would pay the Dobe back for killing Itachi. And Hinata. Sasuke thought darkly. She knows how to carry herself in battle. She's even stronger than that weakling Haruno. I will break her in front of the Dobe. He is not worthy of being the ruler of these people. I will take his throne, and the Empire will bear the rebirth of the Uchiha. Trouble sleeping, Sasuke Uchiha. Sasuke spun around, Chokuto ready to impale the offending person dumb enough to intrude on his training. Kabuto, still dressed as one of Katsurugi's bodyguards, emerged from the shadows, unmasked, allowing Sasuke to see his face. Then again, if I found out that my former teammate was the ruler of an empire, I would have trouble sleeping as well, he said. So you know about that. Sasuke sniped as he went back to his training. I did not know until after the Akatsuki invaded Suna, Kabuto explained. I was there on Lord Orochimaru's orders when the Akatsuki came. But he has known about the Empire for quite some time. I was also there when the Akatsuki invaded, and fought under the guise of a Suna Junin. If the dead last and her insecure heiress could not only do that much damage to the leaf, then the leaf is severely lacking in training. Sasuke remained silent. It goes to show that sometimes, the dead last can surprise you, Kabuto continued, noticing how Sasuke's grip on the Chokuto was getting even tighter. Look at Jiraiya. He was the dead last on his team. Now, he is 1/3 of the legendary Sannin, although now he is missing an arm, but still. Sasuke turned around. What do you want, Kabuto? He asked icily. Nothing, just stopped by for a friendly chat, and to check up on your progress, Kabuto continued. Ironic, don't you think? The dead last stopped you the last time you tried to come to our side, and what did that get him? A one-way ticket out of Konoha. Now look at him, Emperor of the Western Empire. While you, on the other hand, despite being trained by the late, copycat, Hitaki and the Warhawk, well, to put it politely, you were stagnating in Konoha, despite wielding the Majinkyu. As much as you don't want to hear this, Uchiha, Naruto is stronger than you. In response, Sasuke tried to cleave Kabuto in two, but found himself splitting a log in two instead. Did I touch a nerve, Sasuke? Kabuto's voice rang out from the trees. You can do much more. You can learn more under the best of the legendary Sannin. You can learn how to better control your seal. Lord Orochimaru's offer is still open to you, Sasuke Uchiha. With that, he was gone, leaving Sasuke alone with his thoughts. Kabuto did have a point. In the 7 years following Uzumaki's banishment, he was pardoned for his attempted defection, but it came with a price. Sasuke, and all of Konoha, had underestimated the influence that the dead last-turned-emperor had on the people he had met. In the 7 years following the Dobe's banishment, he had been out of Fire Country only twice. Both times, he and Cell 7 had been attacked by rival shinobi. He had been placed under what he saw was virtual house arrest as a result. Kabuto was right about another thing. Konoha had gotten weak in the years following Uzumaki's banishment. Add the fact that 4 of its clans had defected to the western Suna had now taken Konoha's spot as the strongest of the village, Sasuke's opinion of the leaf had plummeted even further. And Uchiha values strength above all things, his father had told him. The strong leads, while the weak follows. That is the Uchiha way. Sasuke's patience in regards to Konoha was running thin. Orochimaru's offer was looking more attractive than ever. Day 2 of the Imperial Kumet. The tournament continued with the semi-finals. Asuma Sarutobi had knocked off another Iwa shinobi, leaving Kuretsuchi. Sasuke Uchiha had trouble with his latest opponent, but had powered on through with a Chidori to the chest. Thankfully, his opponent had survived the assassination jutsu. Then came Ino. Her opponent was Sakura Haruno, in a rematch from their Chuunin exams back when Naruto and Hinata were both genin. Both women were medic nins, and both were trained under Sannin. While Sakura remained in Konoha, unable to travel, as the impromptu death sentence extended to her as well, given that she was also a member of Cell 7, Ino had far exceeded Hinata's expectations as a medic nin. Combine that with Okajima's training, and Ino had made a name for herself as a highly skilled kunoichi. Ino didn't even need to use her mind transfer jutsu. She simply manipulated Sakura around the arena, and sidestepped her former friend. Sakura fell face first into the water, and Ino had won the match by ring out. Then came Asuma Sarutobi, who had the bad luck of being pitted against the Inoshika Cho's new sensei, Hayate Okajima. Asuma Saturobi of Konohagakure no Sato vs Hayate Okajima of Shinzoku. Fighters, to the arena. Hayate Okajima and Asuma Sarutobi entered the arena. Okajima was clad in his shinobi uniform, think Hanzo Hattori's costume from Samurai Shodown Sen, but without the red scarf and face mask, and was in the process of securing his Tengu mask on his face. From the booth, Tsunade had a grin on her face as she watched Asuma enter the arena. "Looks like my luck is turning, brat," she addressed Naruto. "Asuma is fighting. So is Okajima," Naruto noted. "Hayate Okajima is not only a member of my council and minister of shinobi affairs, but he is also a cunning and ruthless strategist. His intellect is rivaled by the Nara. He is also a master of the silent kill. Only the Chiba and the Hyuga could match him in Taijutsu. There is a difference between playing bodyguard to a daimyo and fighting in a war, Senju. The son of the Sandaime is in for one tough fight." "Why the Tengu mask?" Mei asked. "I asked Okajima the same thing," Naruto said. "He just told me that he just liked wearing it. I just left it at that." On the arena floor, Okajima cracked his neck muscles, and stood there, sizing up the former sensei of the Inoshika Cho trio. Asuma pulled out his trench knives and channeled chakra into them. He saw that Okajima did not have a ninjato on him, and soon discovered why. On his forearms and hands were clawed gauntlets, the fingers ending in sharpened claws. He could have taken the easy way out and asked the Inoshika Cho as to how Asuma fought, but decided against that idea. Asuma gripped his knives even tighter. Even without being able to properly pull off jutsu, Asuma was still a battle-hardened warrior under the Godaime's command. "Fighter's, ready. And go." Asuma did not waste any time, lunging forward with a front snap kick, of which Hayate swatted to the side. The spinning back kick was also knocked aside. The former guardian ninja and the Tengu moved in, Asuma punching and slashing with his trench knives, kicking up sparks as he attempted to use the flying swallow to break through Okajima's defenses, kicking up sparks as his trench knives made contact against Okajima's chakra-covered gauntlets. Asuma took a step back in order to avoid the punch to the face, but Okajima did not let up. The Tengu scored the first blow, an open palm strike to the face, which left an angry red mark on Asuma. From the booth, the Inoshika Cho watched the fight. They knew that Asuma was good, but their de facto sensei was even better. It was Shikamaru who explained Okajima's motives. "Okajima sensei is feeling Asuma out," he explained to Ino and Chuji, who was eating a bag of chips. "Once he's done that, then he will go in for the kill." Kurenai had heard Shikamaru's comment and grew worried. Asuma could not pull off any jutsu which involved hand seals, as he was still going through rehab over that. "After all," Shikamaru continued, "he did the same to us when he took us under his wing." "Don't remind me," Ino said, shuddering. "We learned more under Okajima sensei than Asuma." Down in the arena, Asuma had succeeded in tagging Okajima with several powerful blows, but Okajima had been hit with a whole lot worse. He ignored the pain and the fight began to turn in his favor. What made the fight even more exciting was that Okajima, a master of ninjutsu, was not using any jutsu for the match. He simply relied on taijutsu to beat Asuma within an inch of his life. 2 kicks to the sternum forced Asuma up against the stone chains. There, Hayate proceeded to pummel him with a barrage of punches, elbows and kicks. Asuma tried to defend against the onslaught, but it was no use. After 20 seconds of non-stop pummeling, Okajima stopped, and Asuma, bloodied and bruised, slumped to a seated position, blood seeping from his mouth and from a cut to the head. This match was over. Hayate turned to the proctor. "Call the match," he said. "The winner, Hayate Okajima." The crowd cheered as Okajima made his exit via Shunshin and reappeared in the booth. Ignoring the angry looks of Kurenai and the others, Okajima took his seat and removed his gauntlets from his hands. The gauntlets stained with Asuma's blood. "Your man is still alive," Okajima said, not looking in Tsunade's direction as he addressed her and Kurenai. "The infirmary is at the south end of the stadium, first underground level. You're more than happy to check on him there." Kurenai looked at Tsunade, who gave her consent with a nod. With a glare to both Okajima and Naruto, Kurenai disappeared in a Shunshin. From his seat, Naruto chuckled. Yamato leveled his own spooky glare, which had scared Naruto in his youth, but Naruto responded with his own 1,000-yard stare, causing Yamato to flinch, and back down as a result. The next match was Yugao Uzuki against Hellcat member Miko Himura. Having seen Yugao use the dance of the crescent moon, Miko knew what to expect. She countered the move by dispelling the clones used for the jutsu and disarmed Yugito. The vice-commander of the ANBU had no other choice but to concede defeat. With Yugao out of the tournament, Sasuke Uchiha remained. The Uchiha prince managed to knock Kuretsuchi out of the ring. Temari won against Ino, but lost to Rasu, thus putting both Suna and Iwa out of the tournament. That left the Uchiha and 2 Imperial warriors ready to tear him limb from limb. Even Tsunade knew that Sasuke's chances of getting out of this tournament in one piece were nil. The Emperor held all the cards and had pissed Tsunade off to no end. Miko Himura, seeing that Rasu wanted to fight Sasuke, had forfeited her place in the tournament, citing chakra exhaustion. Naruto had made sure that she would be reimbursed for time served in the tournament. Which led to this moment. Final round. Sasuke Uchiha of Konohagakure no Sato vs Rasu of the Violent Lightning. Fighters, to the arena. Sasuke used a shunshin to teleport to the ring, while Rasu strode in. The red and gold armor glistened in the afternoon sun as the shogun of the Violent Lightning faced down his last opponent. Rasu remembered his emperor's orders for him when the time came for him to face the arrogant Uchiha. Crush him. If he made Sasuke say, "Matt," then it would be a bonus. The Uchiha smirked as he watched his opponent. Your road ends here, Rasu. Here is where I will prove to the Dobe and his whore that I am better than him by beating you. Then he will be next, and the West will see that I am the elite of the elites. Rasu simply responded by cracking his knuckles, before switching hands and repeating the motion. Then you have no problem in showing me that you are an elite Uchiha. Please be a suitable challenge for me, unlike your late brother, whom the emperor had killed. Sasuke unsheathed his chokuto, just as the proctor shouted, "Fighters. Ready, and go." Lightning danced around Rasu as he assumed his stance. Let the thunder roll, he mused. Sasuke started the match by flinging several kunai at Rasu, who merely batted them out of the way. But Sasuke hoped that it would distract him long enough for him to move in and use his sword. But Rasu was faster and unsealed his own weapon, a metal staff. Aside from his lightning release, Rasu was a prodigy in bojutsu, of which Sasuke would soon find out. The crowd roared its approval as chokudo and bo clashed. Rasu calmly parried Sasuke's thrusts and swings. From his place inside the booth, Kabuto nodded in approval. Sasuke has improved, but Rasu is playing with him. He looked at the emperor from the corner of his eye. Naruto does not look like he is worried. Could this be a setup to humiliate the Uchiha? I wonder. In the arena, Rasu moved to the side in order to avoid Sasuke's sword thrust. His fist bounced off the back of the Uchiha's skull, knocking him to the ground. I got to say that this is the most fun I had in a while. It's good to compete in such tournaments, as it keeps you sharp, said the Lightning Master. Sasuke got back to his feet and retrieved his chokuto. Glaring at the smug Rasu, who was balancing his staff on one shoulder, he charged and the fight resumed. Sasuke then felt the air rush out of his lungs as Rasu slammed his fist into his torso, forcing him down to one knee. You know what your greatest sin is, Uchiha? Rasu asked. Your pride. For all your talk and proclaiming your greatness, you are merely hiding behind your Sharingan and your name, living in the shadow of your older brother. Shut up, Sasuke shouted back. You know nothing. Oh, but I do, Rasu replied as he and Sasuke locked weapons. I know about you and the chief being on the same cell when the both of you were younger. That Hitaki had given you every single jutsu that you could ask for. The chief and the lady were very honest about their past. The chief has his flaws, as does his wife, but he got to where he is at because of hard work. Unlike you, the chief does not proclaim his superiority just because he is a descendant of the Six Paths. He did not use his ancestry to get to where he is. He did not use his Rinnegan as a crutch. For that reason, does he earn my respect? You compare me to that dope. Sasuke seethed. I am an Uchiha. I am also a descendant of the Six Paths. I do, Rasu replied. And sorry to bust your bubble, but neither the Uchiha nor the Senju are not the direct descendants of the Six Paths sage, the very first Jinchuriki of whose power was this stadium was built. Your clan ancestor and those of the Senju merely were trained by him, and rode on his coattails to make their family line even more illustrious. You think you had it bad given that your nut job of a brother exterminated your clan. Try growing up without parents. The chief came out just fine. You were seriously fucked in the head. Shut up, Sasuke shouted, breaking the hold. But before he could counterattack, Rasu thrust his staff forward, catching Sasuke in his shoulder. Sasuke's screams echoed through the Colosseum as a shock of electricity coursed through his veins, giving the audience a nice view of what his skeleton looked like. Oh suck it up, Uchiha, Rasu sniped as Sasuke dropped his chokuto. I barely touched you. He turned to the proctor. Call the match. This runt has no more fight left in him. Sasuke's eyes shifted into the Majin-Q as she spun upon Rasu. No, this fight is not over yet. He screamed as he went through several hand seals. Chidori. Rasu smirked as Sasuke used the power of the cursed seal to give him an extra boost in speed. How in the world can an assassination jutsu can create such a racket, he thought as Sasuke bared down on him. Rasu's hand balled into a fist as he produced the counter for such an inferior technique. Rasengan. The lightning fist was Rasu's signature technique. It was delivered in one of two ways, a straight punch to the face, or a rising uppercut a la Kazuya Mishima's electric wind god fist. As Sasuke found out, he was struck with the latter. The blow had knocked him 7 feet into the air, with Rasu soon following after him, adding insult to injury by using the lion combo, of which Sasuke had stolen from Rock Lee during the Chunin exams, his foot slamming the Uchiha into the stone arena. The Rasengan had made Sasuke's chakra control and his nervous go haywire, which was more than enough time for Rasu to put the final nail in the coffin. A kick to the torso, followed by Rasu rolling Sasuke over on his stomach, pinning him to the arena with one knee and Sasuke's arm painfully wrenched behind his back. I want to hear it, Rasu shouted. Say it. Sasuke knew what Rasu wanted him to say. But Sasuke was not going to say it. To say that 5-letter word would be the ultimate humiliation even for him. When Sasuke hesitated in his answer, Rasu responded by applying even more pressure onto his arm, threatening to break it should Sasuke not give in. Say it, Uchiha, Rasu demanded. Say it so that everyone can hear. Faced with leaving the Empire with a broken arm, Sasuke conceded defeat. Mat. Satisfied, Rasu released Sasuke's arm and moved away from him as the crowd cheered. The winner and champion of the Imperial Kumite, Rasu. The announcer declared. Inside the booth, Naruto grinned, while Tsunade was slamming her fist on the reinforced arm of her chair, swearing up a storm while Jiraiya and Yamato looked pissed. The Ino Shikacho cheered for the newest champion. Katsuragi, Gaara, Onoki, and Mei had looks of satisfaction on their faces as to how the tournament had played out. In the arena, Sasuke's eyes morphed into the Majinku as he scrambled over to his Chokuto, his intention clear. He was going to rob the Empire of its champion. Sasuke activated the Chidori Katana and charged, intending on impaling Rasu from behind. Rasu simply responded by performing a lightning shunshin, and Sasuke passed where Rasu once stood moments earlier. Sasuke had to skid to a stop, as he found himself close to the arena's edge. Upon reappearing, Rasu took the opportunity to give his dishonorable opponent a final indignity. He booted Sasuke off the arena and into the water. It had gotten a real good laugh from the crowd. And that laughter increased as Sasuke dragged himself out of the water and stomped out of the arena, humiliated beyond belief. In the booth, Tsunade was torn between knocking Sasuke's head off for his attempted cheap shot from behind, while at the same time wanting to die following the humiliation that Sasuke, and by extension, Konoha, had suffered through his actions. Konohagakure no Sato, 3 weeks later. Sasuke Uchiha was not very happy. His grand debut in the Empire's Imperial Kumite had been a big failure. The team that Tsunade had assembled was a big failure. He had not only lost, but had been thoroughly humiliated by Rasu, and by extension, Naruto. Even worse, Konoha and Fire Country had to pay a huge indemnity due to Sasuke's attempted murder of Rasu or face invasion from the Western Empire. Word had spread fast about how Sasuke not only lost, but as to how he had tried to spear the champion of this year's Imperial Kumite in the back with his Chidori Katana. One thing that Sasuke absolutely hated aside from Naruto was the fact that he was looked down upon as a joke, as an afterthought. Upon returning to Konoha, he had kept to himself, unless summoned by Danzo. His opinion on Tsunade and her super pervert of a teammate had sank even lower. The idea of leaving Konoha for greener pastures, namely, Otogakure, was more frequent in his mind. He had closed himself off from the others, save for Danzo, as he answered to him. He was to be seen as a hero, as one who had beaten the best that the Empire had to offer. But that backfired in the most extreme way. Still thinking evil thoughts as he entered the Uchiha district, he entered his home. The 2 black books were placed on his nightstand inside his bedroom. They were out of place, as Sasuke did not own books with black binders on them. Further inspection showed that the books in question were Black Ops books detailing every single Black Ops mission that had taken place in Konohagakure under the Hokages and Danzo Shimura. Curiosity getting the better of him, Sasuke sat down on the edge of the bed and began to read. And Sasuke's anger grew as he discovered the truth behind the Uchiha incident, of how it was ordered by the Sandaime himself, with the backing of Danzo Shimura and the 2 deceased council elders in order to thwart his father's attempts at a coup. Of how the Konoha Civilian Council had planned on turning the Sharingan into a weapon in order to make Konoha the strongest of the villages. Last, he read about Danzo and his hidden arm containing the Shodaime's Mokuten and the harvested Sharingans, not the Shisui's Sharingan hidden behind those bandages, as well as his now failed plans in regards to Naruto and his new plans in making Sasuke the perfect weapon, while at the same time, subjugating him to serve Konoha's will. Even worse, was that Tsunade herself signed off on the order in the Black Ops book for the Hokage. If Sasuke was made before, he was outright furious. His life was not his own. His bloodline had been stolen by those who did not deserve it. He had been played by the Hokage and the Civilian Council. The path to him was now clear. Sasuke Uchiha had left the village shortly before dawn, but not before sending Konoha a message. First, he had spent most of the night sneaking into the homes of the Civilian Council and executed the council members. Sakura's mother, the head of the Konoha Merchants Guild, was among the casualties. As Sakura was working at the hospital at the time, she was spared his wrath. Sasuke thought about killing Danzo and Tsunade, but decided against it. But he did, however, kill Asuma Sarutobi as he was on his way home from his rehab, ambushing him and leaving his body inside one of Konoha's alleys, thus making Kurenai a widow. By the time the alarm was raised, Sasuke Uchiha was halfway to Otogakure. Furious, Tsunade and Danzo had ordered a joint retrieval mission to bring the Uchiha back. However, Orochimaru had anticipated this and had reacted. He unleashed the revived Sound 4 and 200 Oto Junin upon the 20-man retrieval team. Only 3 members of the retrieval team sent by Tsunade, Kiba and Izuka, and root operatives Torun Aburame and Fu Yamanaka, survived to return with the bad news. The Uchiha retrieval mission 2 was a complete failure. Sasuke Uchiha had successfully defected to Orochimaru. The Fire Daimyo's response was instant. Sasuke Uchiha was declared AS-class missing nin and traitor to both the Leaf and Fire Country, wanted for the murders of Asuma Sarutobi and the civilian members of the Konohagakure Civilian Council. Otogakure, Rice Country. Welcome to my humble home, Sasuke Uchiha, Orochimaru greeted from his throne as Sasuke entered the room, having been led inside by Kabuto. I am pleased to see that you have taken up my offer. He turned to Kabuto. What of the retrieval team sent by the leaf? With the exception of 3, all are dead, Kabuto replied. Good, very good, the snake Sannin said. You have made the right choice in coming here to Otogaku, Sasuke. I have heard about your performance in the Imperial Kumite, as well as the incident in Suna regarding your former teammate. Although I am rather surprised to find out that the dead last is now the Emperor. I can care less about the dobe, Sasuke snapped. I want only one thing, aside from the power that you promised me. Oh, and that is. Burn Konoha to the ground, Sasuke replied. Destroy everything, Tsunade, Danzo. Everything. Konoha has betrayed my clan and tried to make me into their personal weapon. Naruto and the Empire can wait. I know the Leaf's strengths and weaknesses. With the loss of 4 of their clans and most of their experienced Junin, Konoha is weak. I cannot serve a village that is weak. Yes, Orochimaru leaned back in his seat. I believe we will get along just fine, Sasuke. Just fine. Imperial Complex, Kimen, several days later. The scroll from the Empire's intelligence division was delivered to Naruto and Hinata's office inside the House of Sovereigns by a member of said division. The scroll was a week old, but it contained something that Naruto wanted to hear ever since returning to Konoha to plant the incriminating evidence of the 2 Black Ops books he had stolen months earlier inside of Sasuke's home. Naruto read the scroll, with Hinata reading over his shoulder. Sasuke Uchiha defected from the Leaf. Fire Damio has placed Uchiha in the bingo book as AS class missing ninja, and for the murders of the KONOHAGAKURE Civilian Council and ASUMASARUTOBI. I have to say that I am very impressed, Hinata acknowledged. One thing about the Uchiha, her husband replied. He is so predictable. Although killing off the Civilian Council and Asuma was something that I was not expecting, it's still a nice bonus. So what do we do now? Hinata asked. We wait. Konoha's days are numbered, Naruto replied. The Leaf has sown the wind. Now, it will reap the whirlwind. And when the time comes for the Leaf to fall, I will be there to put the nail in their coffin. Chapter 5. Snafu's notes. I thought about having Naruto taking on the Sannin, but that did not go well. I thought of having Naruto fight Sasuke, but remembered that I did that in consequences. So it would be best to have Naruto wipe out the Sannin en masse. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down, yea we wept, when we remembered Zion. Remember, O Lord, the children of Edom in the day of Jerusalem who said, raise it, even to the foundation. O daughter of Babylon, who art to be destroyed. How happy shall he be, that rewardeth thee as thou hast served us. Happy shall he be, that taketh and dasheth thy little ones against the stones. Psalms 137, verses 1, 7-9, as quoted by Joshua Graham, Fallout, New Vegas. 9 months had passed since the conclusion of the Imperial Kumite in South Akiyama. Since then, the Imperial Nation had signed a non-aggression pact with both Iwagakure and Earth Country, as well as establishing a Pekara outpost in the Earth capital. Onoki also agreed to have Iwa medic Nins come to Kimen to learn under Hinata in order to keep Iwa casualties down. Second, Naruto had reclaimed the ruins of Whirlpool Country and annexed it. He did not revive Uzushiogakure no Sato, as there was no need. He did, however, made Whirlpool into a major Pekara outpost. In the months following the conclusion of the Imperial Kumite, Sasuke Uchiha had defected from Konoha and had murdered Asuma Sarutobi and the Konoha Civilian Council on his way out. The incident would become known as the Uchiha Slaughter. Given the fact that he had ran years earlier, and that he wielded the Majinkyu Sharingan, he was labeled as an S-class threat in the bingo book. Orders, kill on sight. Naruto knew that he had fled to Otogakure, as he was the one who manipulated the Uchiha to head there in the first place. Now, it was only a matter of time before Orochimaru and Sasuke would invade Konoha. Orochimaru had not only been training Sasuke in learning how to control his cursed seal, but also had recruited bandits and missing nin to the sound, swelling his ranks, the majority of which having been subjected to the cursed seal. As expected, Orochimaru had ordered his nin not to antagonize the Pekara merchants and their caravans, as he did not want the Empire on his back. Sasuke balked at the order, but honored it, as Orochimaru did have a point. Kabuto had seen firsthand the Imperial forces in action, as the Akatsuki found out the hard way. We will make our move against the Empire and their interests soon enough, Orochimaru had told Sasuke. But right now, our main focus is the Leaf. It did not occur to Orochimaru that Naruto was manipulating him into attacking Konoha. Kabuto had his suspicions, but dismissed them, as he assumed that Naruto could not plan such a grandiose scheme. It did not occur to Sasuke that Naruto had manipulated him into defecting from Konoha by making him look worthless in the eyes of the shinobi world, nor that the blackout books from Danzo and the Hokage were planted by him. He had failed to take his late sensei's words to heart, look underneath the hidden meanings. It did not occur to Tsunade and Jiraiya that they had severely underestimated their ex-godson. They thought he had the devil's luck in avoiding their hunter nins and establishing the empire, that he was like Jiraiya when the Sannin were under Sarutobi's tutelage, a dead last. They did not expect to be manipulated by Naruto, or that he would use Orochimaru and Sasuke to bring about Konoha's destruction with Naruto himself delivering the coup de grace. 9 months later, Hinata had given birth to their second child. The couple named her Moka Kushina Namikaze. As the imperial nation celebrated the birth of their new princess, Orochimaru had decided that the time was right for them to attack Konohagakure. Captain Asahina had sent a communique to the imperial capital, notifying Naruto and Hinata of the invasion of Konoha. Even though he did not want to leave his newborn daughter, Naruto had to make sure that Konoha and by extension, Oto, could not threaten his family or the empire. Hinata had understood and told him to do what he must, and that he had better come back alive. Taking Kurama with him, Naruto used the Demon's Gate and the pair found themselves in Fire Country. Naruto had summoned the Six Paths and placed them under henges and had them join up with Orochimaru's army, while both he and Kurama set up in Konoha from their place on top of the ruined Hokage monument, after retrieving the ashes of Hashirama and Tobirama Senju from the Konoha cemetery. From their place on the monument, Naruto and Kurama watched as Tsunade had ordered the village to be evacuated of all civilians, followed by Konoha shinobi trying to strengthen their defenses. Several messenger birds had been dispatched to Suna and missed, but Naruto knew that Gaara and Mei would not get involved. This would be Konoha's final war. One of two things was going to happen, that Konoha would somehow survive, but would be irreversibly crippled, or Konoha would be destroyed. Naruto was going to make sure that the latter would be the desired result. He had once told Hinata that when the time came, he would be watching Konoha's downfall on the top of the Hokage monument with some drinks, a couple of sushi plates, and some popcorn. Much to Kurama's amusement, he did just that. The invasion had begun in earnest shortly after noon. Sasuke and Orochimaru led the assault, backed by over 2,000 Oto shinobi. While Sasuke went after Danzo with two of Naruto's Six Paths following him deep into the underground complex where Danzo was located. Through control of the two paths accompanying Sasuke, he had seen the events which had led to Danzo's final fight with Sasuke, while Orochimaru and his forces carved a path to the ruins of the Hokage Tower, where Tsunade, Jiraiya and the remaining members of the Konoha 11 and their families awaited to make their last stand. Orochimaru, being the sadistic bastard he was, had not only subjected half of his forces to the cursed seal, but also had used the impure world resurrection jutsu, bringing back once again Hashirama and Tobirama Senju, but also Hiruzen Sarutobi, Kakashi Hitaki, Itachi Uchiha, who had accompanied Sasuke to kill Danzo, Asuma Sarutobi and the Konohamaru Corps to help in bring about Konoha's destruction. Helpless under Orochimaru's control, the resurrected shinobi put their former village to the sword. Asuma Sarutobi had murdered his wife. The Konohamaru Corps had slaughtered a quarter of the Chuunin that had came up with them in their days at the Shinobi Academy, forcing the surviving Chuunin to lead the Konohamaru Corps into a trap, consisting of rigging the former Hyuga compound with explosive tags, destroying the compound and crushing the revived trio under the debris. Meanwhile, Tsunade, Jiraiya and the remaining clan heads and their children were fighting Orochimaru, the two Senju brothers and Hiruzen Sarutobi, while Kakashi slaughtered the majority of the ANBU Black Ops by using Amaterasu, Yamato and Yugao being among the casualties, but not before Yamato used his Mokuden to crush the Sound 4. The Konoha hospital was not exempt from Orochimaru's wrath. A squad of Oto nin, their bodies covered with exploding tags and under the influence of the cursed seals, leveled the building in a suicide attack. Among the casualties were Shizune Kato and Maido Guy, who had been in the hospital since Suna. Despite this, Tsunade and Konoha had fought on, until the battle had begun to inch to a stalemate. Suman Kiba and Izuka were both killed by the Sandaime and his son. Hana and Izuka, on her mother's orders, had evacuated with the civilians. Shino and Shibi Aburame had met their end at the hands of the revived Shodaime and Nadame Hokages. Sasuke had joined in the fray and had cut down the remaining ANBU who were there to protect Tsunade. Naruto, having seen enough, finally decided to intervene. Clap, 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 clap. The fighting between Konoha and Oto shinobi stopped as they heard the sound of clapping. The three Sannin stopped their 2-on-1 brawl, as did the revived Hiruzen and Asuma Sarutobi, Kakashi Hitaki, and the Senju brothers. The warring parties looked around, trying to find out who was clapping, until the person in question revealed himself. He stepped out of the smoke, accompanied by a red-headed woman. He was the one who was clapping, applauding at the mayhem that was unfolding, dressed in his shinobi uniform, the same one which Tsunade and Jiraiya had seen him wear in Suna. Kurama accompanied him, dressed in her battle uniform. Life's end. Isn't it beautiful? It's almost tragic. When life ends, it gives off a final lingering aroma. Light is but a farewell gift from the darkness to those on their way to die, the emperor stated. Hiruzen blinked. Minato. I'm not my father, old man, Naruto sniped. Oh yes, I know that the yellow flash was my father. You lied to me, Sarutobi. You lied to me ever since I was a child. Naruto, I did what I did to protect you. Sarutobi attempted to defend his actions. Your father had many enemies from the last shinobi war. Please understand. I understand that you and Danzo tried to turn me into a loyal weapon, Naruto replied. I understand that you betrayed my parents. Oh, yes, I understand that manipulating a boy was more important than honoring my parents' final wishes. Hiruzen sighed, dropping the facade. I suppose I can drop the act, then. Yeah, you should, Naruto replied. He turned to Tsunade and Jiraiya. Remember what I told the both of you that day when you decided to banish me? Do you? Of course Tsunade and Jiraiya had remembered. They did not take it in account that he was serious. After all, they had written him off as the dead last, the Kyuubi brat who had robbed them of their loved ones. They had laughed off his threat. This isn't over, not by a long shot. You and all of Konohagakure decided to back a traitor over me. I will not forget this, and I sure as hell will not forgive the both of you for this betrayal. Pray that I don't come back to this godforsaken village, because when I do, I will destroy you all. Never let it be known that I keep my word, the emperor said. I told the both of you in sooner that this was just the beginning. As my father brought about Konoha's rise, so I will bring about its fall. You, bringing about the leaf's destruction. Ha, Sakura snorted. You were so full of yourself, Naruto. Even back when we were kids. People change when you don't see or hear from them for years, Haruno, Naruto sniped. Even me. He looked at the faces of the Sannin and those of his former cell in the Sandime. This is quite the reunion. It's been years since we've been here, together in the leaf. He turned to Kurama, and here, I thought they would be happy to see us, Kurama. Kurama gave Naruto a fanged grin. But, Naruto continued, as Tsunade and the others could make out the forms of a man and a woman in the smoke from behind the emperor and the Baiju queen. I did not come alone. He turned to Jiraiya. You told me in Tsunade that you honored my parents' sacrifice by allowing me to suffer, rather than respect their final wishes. Perhaps you would like to convey what you told me to them yourself. With that, the two people emerged from the smoke. To anyone from Konoha, they recognized the pair almost instantly, even after being dead for over 20 years. The man had blonde hair styled in the same manner as his son. He was dressed in the standard Konoha Junin uniform, complete with flak vest. The white trenchcoat with the flame pattern on the tail end fluttered in the breeze. On one finger, through the ring, he was twirling a Hiraishin tree kunai. His companion had long red hair, which she kept tied in a ponytail. Rather than the Konoha Junin uniform, she was dressed in the standard uniform of the Whirlpool Kanoiki, which was similar as to what Hinata herself would wear. A ninjato was in her left hand. The Yellow Flash, himself, Yondaime Hokage Minato Namikaze, and his wife, the Princess of Whirlpool, the Red Death herself, Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. And the pair did not look very happy upon seeing the people who had betrayed and later attempted to kill their son. People who they at one time trusted with their lives. Naruto smirked. Orochimaru isn't the only one who knows the impure world resurrection. In truth, Naruto did not know the forbidden jutsu. He had simply placed two reinforced clones under the henge to make them look like Minato and Kushina to use as a form of psychological warfare. However, through a twist of fate, the Shinigami allowed Minato and Kushina's souls to possess the two shadow clones for the duration of the clones' existence. Even the Death God agreed that Konoha had to answer for their betrayal and had allowed them to return to the land of the living, if only for a short time. This, Naruto had done before leaving Kimen for Konoha. Of course, it did give Minato and Kushina some time with their grandchildren before they left, as well as thanking their friends the Ino Shikacho and Hayashi for honoring their final request in regards to Naruto. While Naruto was on the Hokage monument, Minato and Kushina decided to vent out their frustrations by taking the fight to Konoha's forces until the time came for the big reveal. Give me one good reason as to why I should not do to this village what I had done to Iwa, Minato said, gripping the tree kunai in one hand. One reason. We did what we had to do, Jiraiya defended. Hiruzen-sensei saw that Konoha was crippled following the last shinobi war, so we had to ensure that the Nine Tails remained in Konoha to ensure our survival. When it became clear that Naruto could not be controlled, we saw him as a threat and had to be dealt with as such. Kushina, on the other hand, was livid. So not only you tried to exterminate my brother and my clan, but you damned my son to a living hell. She demanded. She was not known as the red-hot habanero for nothing. She wanted to gut Jiraiya for what he had done. The Nine Tails were the property of the Senju clan, and by extension, the Leaf, defended Tsunade. Just as all of the other Baiju were. Kushina looked at her aunt with a mixture of pity and betrayal. You're wrong. I'm sure that my son has already explained to you that the Baiju are not the property of the Senju clan, but rather under the care of the Uzumaki clan, of which our ancestor was the Rikudo Sennin himself. That much is true, Hashirama said. All I did was use the Mokuden to subdue them. He looked at the reunited family. Who are you? My name, Lord Shodaime, is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, Naruto began. Former Genin shinobi of Konohagakure no Sato, former Jinchuuriki of Kurama, the nine-tailed fox, descendant of the Rikudo Sennin, and emperor of the unified Western Empire. Tsunade Senju, as much as I hate to admit, is my great-aunt, since Mito Uzumaki was her grandmother. He introduced his parents, my father, Yondaime Hokage of Konoha, Minato Namikaze, and my mother, the Princess of Whirlpool and second Jinchuuriki to Kurama, Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. What the kid speaks is the truth, Kurama confirmed. To back up Naruto's claim, 9 foxtails emerged from her backside. The Baiju queen smirked as she savored the looks of disbelief on the faces of the Sannin and on the resurrected cages. Even Orochimaru looked shocked. In case you're a bit slow, I am Kurama, better known by my title, Kyubi no Yoko, the nine-tailed fox. She looked at Hashirama. You don't look so good, Hashirama. Mito would disapprove. Jiraiya was shocked. The hot redhead that had been hanging around Naruto had been the Kyubi the whole time. Naruto looked at the gathered cages. Isn't this something? All of Konoha's cages together. You broke the seal, Hiruzen demanded in a rage. I did, Naruto replied. I did this after I was banished from the leaf by your successor. You were banished from the leaf. Hashirama asked, now interested in Naruto's backstory. What was your crime? Being a hero, Naruto replied. Konoha favored a potential traitor over me. That and because I was Kurama's jailer, and that both Tsunade and Jiraiya blamed the death of my parents on me, as did Hiruzen for the death of his wife. Long story short, a former student of my father's thought to have been Kia, returned and unleashed Kurama onto the village as my mother was giving birth to me. My mother died from complications surrounding her birth and my father had to use the Shikifujin to seal Kurama in me at the cost of his life. Tobirama nodded. A noble sacrifice, he said. Naruto scoffed. Konoha didn't seem to think so. Neither did Sarutobi or those two idiots. My father's last wish was for the leaf to see me as a hero. But I was denied my inheritance by Sarutobi, and the village treated me like a virtual pariah. But that is just the tip of the iceberg, Lord Nadame. Sorobi and Shimura wanted to make me into Konoha's weapon, but died as a result of sealing Orochimaru's arms with the Shikifujin. Sarutobi's scheme soon fell onto Tsunade and Jiraiya. He turned to Orochimaru. Sasuke Uchiha was assigned to Cell 7, the same as me. He was seduced by the promise of power from Orochimaru and had defected from Konoha as a result. Tsunade had ordered a retrieval team to go and recapture Sasuke before he could make it to Orochimaru. It's true, as much as hate to admit, Orochimaru conceded. While his teammates fought my Sound 4, Naruto had fought Sasuke at the Valley of the End. Naruto had defeated Sasuke and brought him back home. Instead of being recognized as a hero, he was instead blamed for Sasuke trying to leave. He was banished, and Tsunade even went as far as to send out Anbu and Hunter Nins to kill him. That was when he had disappeared. His smirk deepened. Your own granddaughter and great niece banished a hero and pardoned a traitor. The two male Senju turned to Sarutobi and the other two Sannin. Is this true? You banished Mido's descendant, he demanded. They did, Kushina said. At the cost of raising Whirlpool Country and Uzushiogakure on Sarutobi's orders. You sold out the Uzumaki clan, my family. All for what? The chance for Konoha to regain control of Kurama. Good thing that I didn't fully trust you, which is why I had Takuma and nearly all of Uzushiogakure relocate back to the west, after eliminating the invading shinobi and dressing them up in Uzu's shinobi uniforms. Orochimaru and Sasuke stood on the sidelines, watching this drama play out. This is very interesting, the snake thought. I wonder how this will play out. Sasuke, in the meantime, was thinking along the lines of, hope the dobe gets himself killed. While you thought that the Uzumaki was nearly extinct, they were in the west, out of sight, out of mind. Of course, Mum could not send word to Uncle Takuma, as she knew that you were watching her like a hawk, Naruto finished. Jiraiya growled. Naruto had all but confirmed that Kushina had deceived him, the great spymaster of Konoha. Even Hiruzen, who had signed off on the order, was irate that the Yondame's wife had played both him and Jiraiya. The power of the Kyuubi belonged to the leaf, the one-armed sage shouted. There was no way that I, nor Hiruzen-sensei, would allow the Uzumaki to take what was rightfully ours. He pointed to Kushina. You were only protected because you were Minato's wife. Minato had heard enough. The yellow flash of Konoha slugged his former sensei right in the jaw, knocking him ass over tea kettle, the toad sage landing flat on his back. Minato was more than angry. He was downright furious at the blatant disregard of his final wishes in regards to his son. He was irate over the betrayal that Konoha had done to himself, his wife and his son. I trusted you, Jiraiya, Minato said. You were like a father figure to me. And you go and you do this. You and Tsunade betrayed not only your godson, my son, but you and Sarutobi damned him to a life of misery and pain. Naruto snorted. You really are a piece of work, Jiraiya. So much for honoring their sacrifice. He turned to Hashirama and Tobirama. I had every intention of letting Konoha self-destruct on their own through the choices they made. Payback for betraying me and my family. But that damned Warhawk and his two buddies on the council decided to send Sai and a hit squad of his Route NBU to try and not only assassinate me, but also my wife, the 4 clans who had defected from here, and the Imperial Council when I refused terms for an alliance. Tsunade's eyes widened, as did Jiraiya's and Sarutobi's. This entire mess was Danzu's fault. Koharu and Honyura on the other hand, continued the Emperor, let's just say that they were long overdue for retirement. I decided to be nice enough to leave Danzu for Sasuke. Tsunade and the others immediately caught the hidden meaning. Naruto had killed them. Tsunade mentally cursed to herself, as she had written off their deaths as accidental and in the case of Koharu, natural causes. Aside from his crimes of attempted regicide, Danzu also has secrets of his own. I thought that you were under the influence of the Sharingan he has implanted underneath those bandages, but as it turns out, that was not the case, Naruto continued, his own eyes morphing into the Rinnegan. I know because of my own bloodline, which I can detect other bloodlines and identify whether or not people are under a genjutsu. Shimura not only has the Sharingan, but also has a special arm hidden underneath his robes containing not only multiple Sharingans, but also DNA harvested from the body of the first Hokage. Hashirama's eyes narrowed, as did Tobirama's own. Power, oh, she is a seductive mistress, Naruto continued. She is an addictive thrill. One taste of it and the weak-minded are left yearning for more. It can drive certain people mad. Orochimaru, Danzu, Sarutobi, even Tsunade. With such great power comes even greater responsibility. You and your brother knew that. My father knew that. Lord Shodime, you once preached about the will of fire. The will of fire has been extinguished at the hands of your former student and those of his own students, one of which is your own granddaughter. Yes. Hashirama looked visibly disturbed at this chain of events. It appears so. Grandfather, no, don't listen to him. Tsunade attempted to defend herself. The brat is lying. I told you before, old hag, Naruto shot back. I never lie. His smirk deepened. Want to know just how bad you underestimated me? You got a sample of it back in sooner. But this could count as my masterpiece. He turned to Jiraiya. For a spy master, he obviously did not see this coming. Then again, neither did the both of you. Imagine that, the demon of Konoha, the Dobe, manipulating not only Konoha's greatest spy master, but also the Godheim Hokage of Konoha and the Snake Sannin. Be careful as to how you speak, boy, Orochimaru hissed. You may be strong, but you are not stronger than me. Now that's no way to thank the person who had delivered to you the key to immortality, Naruto chided, wagging a finger at the snake. Did you really think that Sasuke came to your side willingly? Of course not. Tsunade's eyes widened at this revelation, as did Jiraiya's own. I knew it, Kabuto said. I had my suspicions, but I did not have any proof. You manipulated Sasuke into defecting from Konoha. Amazing what blackout orders detailing the Uchiha massacre and Sasuke's role into creating a Uchiha clan subservient to only the Hokage can do, Naruto confessed. Then again, it was easy to make that idiot think that he was not as much of an elite as he thought himself to be. Sasuke growled as his eyes shifted into the Sharingan. Naruto had played him for a fool yet again. The Kumite back in the Empire, you designed it solely just to humiliate me. Naruto shook his head. Actually, I didn't. I just manipulated the tournament so you would end up fighting Rasu. The fact that you managed to get as far as you did was a miracle in itself. You should feel honored, Sasuke. Thanks to me, you will get a place in history as the man who brought about Konoha's downfall. A spiteful, bitter, spoiled Uchiha, although I will gladly take the credit for destroying the leaf. Asuma, having been silent for the duration of this confrontation, balked. You used us, all of us, just so you could destroy Konoha. Don't you just love it when a plan comes together? I sure do. This was something that Hinata and I had came up with while we were fighting in the Unification Wars as a joke. But once we united the lands, we gave it some more serious thought. But before we could deal with the leaf, there was Obito and the Akatsuki, as they would more than likely come after me for having the Baiju in my possession. Obito invading Suna gave me the excuse needed to go to war, as Suna is an ally. Once Obito and the Akatsuki was wiped out, I could finally focus on Konoha. Hiruzen had heard enough. Madness in his eyes, he charged at Naruto, as did Asuma, brandishing his bloodied trench knives. However, Kurama intervened. Two of her foxtails had speared the resurrected father and son and lifted them into the air. As the Konoha side watched in horror, save for the two Senju brothers and Orochimaru, Kurama incinerated both men, reducing them to charred bones. The special kunai designed by Orochimaru to control them fell to the ground, charred from the intense heat. Sensei! Jiraiya shouted in horror. Goodbye, Hiruzen Sarutobi, Naruto sniped. Give my regards to Koharu and Honmura. Jiraiya, at that moment, saw red. You devil! The enraged super pervert screamed, forming a rasengan in his hand, and charged at the Emperor, who slid a pair of Harashin kunai, one black, the other the classic tree kunai, in his hands. Sidestepping the rasengan, Naruto impaled Jiraiya with the tree kunai in his left hand. Jiraiya's eyes bulged as the rasengan dispersed as he felt the intense pain in his gut, looking at the man who in his mind, looked so much like the man whose son he had forsaken along with most of Konoha. That's for my parents who you betrayed, Naruto snarled. He then shoved the tree kunai even deeper. That's for the Uzumaki clan, who you tried to exterminate. He raised the second kunai and drove it into Jiraiya's neck. And this is from me. Fuck you and die. Naruto yanked out the tree kunai out of Jiraiya's gut and kicked Jiraiya back. Jiraiya died, looking at the darkening night sky. As he died, the last thing he had seen was the faces of Minato and Kushina, looking at him with nothing but disdain. And then, there were two, Naruto mused, turning to Orochimaru. Even though I have no love for Konoha, you are still a threat. The main reason why you are here is to save me the trouble of invading Otogaku. What better way to eliminate all of my family's enemies than to have them all together in the same place? Is that so? Orochimaru retorted. He turned to Kabuto, Kakashi and the two Hokages. Kill him, he ordered. We'll send his head to his wife. Kabuto nodded, while Haserama and Tobirama turned and faced the Emperor. The two Senju prepared to use their Mokoden to ensnare the Emperor and the Baiju Queen, while Kakashi prepared to face off against his former sensei. But Naruto was not known as the unpredictable maverick shinobi for nothing. Raising the bloody kunai, he flung it at Kakashi, which was followed by Haraishin no Jutsu. One crimson flash later, and Naruto was holding the kunais with the special talismans attached to them which Orochimaru used to control Hashirama and Tobirama in one hand and his unsheathed okatana in the other. Naruto had yanked them out of the two cages, right before Sasuke and Kakashi had both been sledgehammered back from punches to the face by the young Emperor. Kabuto stood there for a split second. Then his glasses fell to the ground, nearly cut in two, which was followed by Kabuto himself, Naruto having vertically bisected Orochimaru's right-hand man. Try and come back from that, Naruto said. Minato could not be any more prouder of his son. Impressive, he complimented. Our village has done this boy wrong, brother, the Nadame said as he began to fade into dust. Hashirama nodded. He is in the right to destroy Konoha. This is not the village we have died for. Before fading away completely, he addressed Tsunade. You are a disappointment to the clan, Tsunade. Now, Tsunade and Orochimaru closed in on the Namikaze family, with the surviving Konoha shinobi, Tsunade having lost any and all sense of sanity following her grandfather's denouncement of her, and Orochimaru, kusanagi in hand. Kakashi had retrieved a pair of kunai from his pouch, while Sasuke summoned lightning to his chokuto, wanting to get in on the action of finally eliminating the dobe once and for all. Naruto, Minato, and Kurama responded by letting loose with a torrent of black Hiraishin kunai, the ones with the Hiraishin seals etched onto the blade, at the surviving sound and leaf shinobi, as well with the classic tree kunai. As expected, Sasuke, Tsunade and Orochimaru had dodged the rain of steel, but some of their subordinates were not as lucky. Hiraishin no Jutsu. Minato Namikaze had become famous for using the Flying Thunder God to annihilate a sizable portion of Iwagakure shinobi. Now, Konoha and Sound had gotten a full taste of the combined wrath of the Yondaimon of the Emperor. First a crimson flash, followed by a yellow flash, and the dying started. When the flash faded, carnage was left behind. Kakashi Hitaki was slain, his soul sealed. Kushina and Kurama had cut down a number of shinobi from both sides. Naruto had cut down Sakura Haruno and Tsunade and Orochimaru were mortally wounded, Naruto placing a special seal designed to nullify his powers before severing his spine. Tsunade had been stabbed repeatedly by Kushina, the wounds causing her to bleed internally. Naruto, on the other hand, did not want to deal with the Uchiha, as he had already beaten him 3 times already. He wasn't going to fight him, but he wasn't going to outright kill him. Naruto simply slashed at the tendons in his arms and legs, thus rendering his former teammate a cripple, but not for very long. The rest of the attacking shinobi, having seen the power of the Hiraishin and who had survived Minato and Kushina's assault, retreated deeper into the village. Behold, Naruto began, arms spread out, looking around the ruined village. The end result of your betrayal. Naruto, Tsunade pleaded, please, don't destroy Konoha. I'm sorry for betraying you, please, show mercy. Mercy. I don't show mercy to traitors. Now, it's time to end this, Naruto stated calmly as he retrieved Sasuke's chokuto and Orochimaru's kusanagi as trophies of war. Turning to the dying Tsunade and Orochimaru, he gave him his final words, ignoring Sasuke's screams. The both of you won't die just yet. You will live long enough to see Konoha burn. I think what I have in store for Konoha's fate is fitting. Farewell. The Baiju Queen and the Namikaze family then vanished via Shunshin. Outside of Konohagakure. Funny how things come full circle, Kurama mused, now in fox form, just as she was all those years ago. Only this time, the mountain-sized Kitsune was now a willing participant in Konoha's destruction. Had Konoha had honored your father's request, and favored you instead of the Uchiha run, then this would not have been their fate. Naruto and his parents were seated on Kurama's head. I know, but there is no time for regrets. The leaf has made their bed. Now it's time for them to lie in it. Minato, on the other hand, looked sad as he watched his home village in his final moments. He had once believed in his village. He had believed in the will of fire. When Naruto had told him of how Konoha had become corrupted, he did not believe him at first. But then, he saw it with his own eyes. He had seen and heard of Jiraiya's betrayal. Kushina placed one hand over her husband's own. Minato, I'm sorry, but this had to be done. It's hard for me too. Minato sighed. I know. He turned to his son. Naruto, you know what to do. His son nodded. Kurama, level the village. Gladly, the fox replied. The Baiju's signature attack was the Baijudama, the Baiju bomb. It is also considered the strongest of the Baiju's techniques. Now that Minato Namikaze's soul was released by the Shinigami, Kurama's yin chakra had been restored, Kurama was back at full power. And the power of the Baiju Queen was a terrifying sight to behold if you were on the wrong side. Kurama opened her maw and began to summon both positive and negative chakra, compressing it inside her mouth. For the Baiju, unleashing a perfect Baijudama was tricky, as the chakra needed to be balanced at an 8:2 ratio lest the Baijudama could backfire. Gyuki found that out the hard way shortly after the 6 paths had separated them, which had resulted in a dislocated jaw for the 8 tails. The 10 tails Baijudama could level an entire village. Kurama was no different. Her Baijudama was just as destructive. Fire, Naruto calmly commanded. Kurama fired the Baijudama. Orochimaru was dead. This Tsunade knew. Surviving Konoha and Oto shinobi ran about, trying to find a way out of the doomed village, but the exits were blocked, Naruto having trapped the shinobi inside via exploding tags, blocking their escape route. Sasuke Uchiha was alive, but not for long. Tsunade had guessed that he would bleed out in less than 5 minutes. Tsunade looked at the bodies of Orochimaru and Jiraiya. She was the last of the legendary Sannin alive, but not for long, as her grandfather's final words echoed in her mind. You are a disappointment to the clan, Tsunade. How did this happen? Tsunade thought. How in the hell did Naruto outsmart all of us? This was not supposed to happen. Konoha is supposed to be the strongest of the villagers. Where did we go wrong? Sasuke was thinking along the lines of, this can't be happening. I don't want to die, showing that through his facade of being a superior Uchiha, he was in fact, afraid of dying. Those were their final thoughts as they were overcome with a blinding flash of light and knew no more. So ended the legendary Sannin of Konoha. So ended the Senju. So ended the life of Sasuke Uchiha. The Baiju bomb, in the form of a black mass of chakra, detonated over Konohagakure, instantly turning night into day, the night sky lighting with the radiance of 1,000 suns. Any surviving shinobi that was caught in the flash was instantly reduced to carbon as a result of the flash. Others who were hiding inside the buildings within Konoha were crushed as the blast wave expanded, turning stone, wood, concrete and glass into shrapnel, shredding and impaling any and everything in its path. Not even the Hokage mountain was left standing, as that was also pulverized into oblivion. Only the training fields were left unscathed from Kurama's blast, although it did rattle the critters in the forest to death. As the light from the blast faded, the village of Konohagakure no Sato was awash in a sea of flames. It was truly to anyone who had lived through the ordeal, hell. To whoever once lived here in Konohagakure no Sato, Naruto's chakra mask voice carried on the wind. I curse its remnants, from its remaining shinobi to its surviving civilians and their descendants. I condemn the Konoha remnant to wander the elemental countries in shame and guilt for the crimes they had committed in the name of the village. You will wander, looking for a new place to start over, but you will have no rest. You will have no reprieve. Until the last of the remnant dies out, you will never have no form of peace. With his declaration done, Naruto and his parents hopped off of Kurama's head. The Baiju queen assumed her human form. Naruto turned to his parents. So, I guess this is goodbye. Kushina nodded sadly. Yes, the Shinigami said that this was good for only 24 hours. She embraced her son. I am so proud of you, Naruto. Naruto smiled. Thanks, Mum. Minato stepped forward and patted his son on the shoulder. Sochi, you have exceeded my expectations. For you to become Emperor of the West. You have done me proud. Thanks, Dad. Kushina turned to Kurama. Watch over him and his family, Kurama. Consider it a request from an old friend. Kurama nodded. I will, Kushina. Moments later, the clones dispersed, while their souls ascended to a higher plane of existence. Naruto and Kurama watched them until they were out of sight. Naruto felt a hand on his shoulder. Turning around, he faced Kurama. Your wife and children are waiting for you, she said. Let's go home. Naruto nodded. He was drained. All he wanted to do was go back to Kimen and sleep. Kurama activated the Demon's Gate Jutsu and the pair stepped through. Behind them, Konoha burned. Come the morning, Konoha would be nothing but a ruined wasteland. Imperial Complex, within the Imperial Palace. Is it over? Hinata's voice had broken Naruto out of his thoughts as he looked inside the bedroom that Minato and Mocha shared. Naruto turned to his wife, who was in her shirt and shorts, and nodded. It's over. Operation Scorched Leaf is a success. Konoha has been destroyed. The Sannin are dead. Sasuke Uchiha is dead. Hinata nodded. Despite everything, Konoha was their hometown. It had pained them to see that Konoha had become corrupted, but in the end, they had chosen their own paths. Konoha had become a threat, and had to be neutralized. Through this action, the Empire, and the East, would remain safe. Suna would retain its status as the strongest shinobi village, while Kazuhana's shinobi village will take Konoha's place as one of the 5. There would be no power vacuum, as Naruto had made sure of that. Sasuke Uchiha would be forever remembered as the shinobi who had brought down the leaf. Only he and his closest allies knew the truth. With Konoha gone, Naruto and Hinata can now look to the future of the Western Empire. The Emperor's wrath was finally sated. Epilogue, Version A. From the history of the unified Western Empire. With the success of Operation Scorched Leaf, Konohagakure was finished as a major player in the shinobi world. The more superstitious people believed that the ruins of Konoha were cursed, and even bandits avoided the ruins like a plague. The Konoha civilians, led by Henna and Izuka, saw that they had nothing to return home to following the destruction of the leaf. Following Konoha's destruction, the survivors attempted to rebuild, but found it difficult. Led by Henna and Izuka and over 200 Junin, the Konoha remnant attempted to settle down, but each time, rival shinobi had attacked their group, thus driving down their numbers even further. In desperation, Henna and Izuka had appealed to the Fire Daimyo for aid, but was turned away. The Fire Daimyo, on threat of invasion on the orders of the other elemental nations given that he had supported Konoha's attempts to destabilize the other villages and their daimyos, had turned the remnants away in order to keep his position as daimyo of Fire Country. That and the daimyo had agreed not to re-establish Konoha or another shinobi village on his lands in order to keep the other nations from invading, following Naruto releasing information regarding his past attempts to cripple the rival villages and their daimyos through Danzu's Route NBU. The last anyone has seen of Henna and Izuka and the Konoha remnants were that they were on a boat heading south to Temujin's continent. They were never heard from again. In the west, the 4 clans who had defected from Konoha had made a name for themselves in the unified Western Empire. Hinata's father, Hayashi Hyuga, had become known to being the diametric opposite of Takuma Uzumaki's hot-headed personality. His daughter, Hanabi Hyuga, would establish herself as one of the finest diplomats that the Western Empire had to offer, serving in Spring Country as its representative. She was also a fine Kanoki, her skills in the Juken becoming legendary. After returning from the mandatory 4 years abroad as the West's ambassador, she returned to Kimen, married, and settled down as clan head. What was formerly known as Cell Guy, now known as Cell 9, also achieved success in the West. Tenten Hyuga had worked her way up the ranks, becoming a skilled weapons master in her own right. Rock Lee, having shed his mini-guy image, became famous for his taijutsu, earning him the nickname Kimon's Green Dragon. Aside from serving in the Imperial Defense Forces, Rock Lee also trained rising shinobi and samurai at the academy, which is where he also met his wife. Under the tutelage of Hayashi Hyuga, Neji Hyuga's martial arts abilities had increased tenfold. But Neji did not become arrogant, thanks to his wife's influence. Both his and Hanabi's children would become famous for their teamwork. The first generation Inoshika Cho, consisting of Inoiki Yamanaka, Shikaku Nara and Chuzo Akamaki, became famous for their teamwork in the West. Inoiki Yamanaka had become one of the most feared men in the Imperial Interrogation and Torture Division, with the prisoners preferring Ibiki over the Yamanaka mind reader. But one could not deny the results, as Inoiki got the job done. Shikaku Nara's reputation for his ability to remain impartial and fair in his post within the Ministry of Shinobi Affairs had even brought Iwa and Mist to the West settle a dispute. Aside from being the muscle of the trio, Chuzo Akamaki also became famous for the Akamaki restaurant in Kimon, its barbecue becoming famous far and wide. The second generation Inoshika Cho, under the tutelage of Hayate Okajima, also became famous, even more so than their days in Konohagakure no Sato. Shikamaru Nara had married Temari, who had become Suna's permanent representative in Kimon, and had a daughter together. Ino Yamanaka had become a renowned medic ninja while working part-time at the Interrogation and Torture Division with her father under the combined tutelage of Karen Uzumaki and Hinata Hyuga. She married Haku Yuki and the pair had 2 children, the eldest with her clan's signature jutsu, and the youngest with Haku's ice abilities. Chuji also married, his wife being a civilian chef at the Akamaki restaurant. The restaurant itself was personally endorsed by the Emperor and Empress consort, as was the Yamanaka flower shop, mainly by the Empress herself. Ibiki Morino became a legend in the Imperial Interrogation and Torture. Aside from Inoiki Yamanaka and Zabuza Mamaki, he was the last person any criminal wanted to see. Zabuza had hooked up with Anko Materashi. Who'd knew that Zabuza was a sadomasochist? Last, was Naruto and Hinata Namikaze. The pair would rule as emperor for 25 years before they decided to step down from their place as emperor and empress of the United West. Minato Namikaze and his wife, Makoto Namikaze, formerly Asuna Junin, to take the throne as the second emperor and empress consort of the unified West. Like his father, Minato would show that he had been trained well. He would rule the unified West under a fair and just hand, being a lover of truth and justice. Despite not being in line for the throne, Moka Namikaze became the daimyo of Spring Country. A talented healer and fighter, Moka was named the 4th Fox Sage by her mother and Kurama. Seeing as how she had a talent for acting and singing, Koyuki Kazuhana, known by her stage name of Yuki Fujikaze, had taken Moka under her tutelage. By the time her elder brother had ascended the throne, Moka Namikaze Kazuhana, having married Yuki's son Rajan Kazuhana, was not only an accomplished warrior, entertainer and healer, but she would go on to rule Spring Country as its daimyo. Rajan would command Spring Village as its cage. The siblings would remain close for many years. Naruto and Hinata Namikaze would become known as Father and Mother of the Empire, a title bestowed upon them in Naruto's 16th year as Emperor of the Unified West. With the ascension of Minato Namikaze, the exploits of his father and mother became legend. Naruto and Hinata Namikaze would go on to leave a series of instructions to their successors on how to rule. These instructions were mandatory reading for all heirs to the throne. What was said is now lost to history, but for all purposes, the advice was followed. The Namikaze dynasty would rule until the end of the shinobi age. No one knows the whereabouts of their descendants, but one thing is for certain. Their exploits will not be forgotten, as they are recorded in the annals of history. Their descendants have not died out, as they are still alive to this very day, unaware of the legacy that they contain. But as with all legends and tales, it is just waiting to be discovered. Epilogue, Version B. The Namikaze dynasty would rule until the end of the shinobi age. No one knows the whereabouts of their descendants, but one thing is for certain. Their exploits will not be forgotten, as they are recorded in the annals of history. The speaker was a woman in her late 20s, early 30s. Her audience was an archaeology class in Tokyo University. The woman was very voluptuous, her figure showing from her business suit and skirt combination, the pair of black heels on her feet. Short dark hair framed her face, the bangs covering one eye a la Rosemary's MGS4 hairdo. Her uncovered lavender eye with pupils scanned the captivated audience. Their descendants have not died out, as they are still alive to this very day, unaware of the legacy that they contain. But as with all legends and tales, it is just waiting to be discovered, she said as she closed the book from which she was reading from. One of her students raised her hand. The professor acknowledged it with a nod. Yes, Miyabi. A freshman student asked her question. Professor Kujikawa, what happened to the refugees from Konoha? The professor, one Mayumi Kujikawa, shrugged her shoulders. No one knows for sure. Once they were on the boat to the unknown continent, they were never heard from again. More than likely, they had assimilated and settled there. A second student raised her hand. Professor, how do you know so much about this subject? Kujikawa smiled. I've been into ancient history for as long as I can remember. It's a passion of mine. She raised the book, which was titled History of the Unified West. The book itself was authored by both herself and her husband, who was a famous writer and lecturer of literature. Most people could not agree if it was fact or fiction, but what they did agree on was that it was a very good read. The ninja system in both East and West could not escape the changing times, and ended up collapsing. Fujikawa continued, but the Namikaze dynasty continued to rule, as they too changed with the times. In the end, it was not an uprising of the people that had brought the Namikaze clan to ruin. So what was it? Miyabi asked. Nature, Fujikawa replied. Mother Nature herself. The larger mountains were always a volatile region, but in the reign of the last emperor, Naruto XII Namikaze, the larger mountains erupted, which triggered a massive earthquake. Days later, the unified West was engulfed in a tsunami, the land sinking into the ocean. Fujikawa remembered that even all too well. Both her and her husband had assisted in the evacuation of the imperial capital, knowing well that the days of the unified West were numbered. Aside from that, they also pilfered the Namikaze vaults underneath the imperial palace using several storage scrolls to seal up the chests of gold, but leaving more than enough cash to their clan so that they can rebuild once again. They also took family heirlooms, jutsu scrolls and weapons that had been collected over the years. The reason being, Mayumi Fujikawa was just an alias. One of many in her long life. Her birth name was Hinata Hyuga, now Hinata Namikaze. Before another student could ask a question, the bell rang, signaling the end of class. But more importantly, the end of the day. It was time to go home. As the students piled out of the classroom, Hinata sat down in a chair and took a moment to reflect. Her hand rubbed absently on the mark where Naruto had bit her on their wedding night. It was shortly thereafter that Kitami had taken both Naruto and Hinata to the side and explained the totality of the mark. As the both of you are mated, you will have fringe benefits. One of which is a long life. The Uzumaki were known for their long lifespans. When the both of you marked each other, that lifespan has increased 1,000-fold. Kurama. Last she heard, the Nine-Tails ran a curio shop in Hokkaido. They had not aged a day over 30, resorting to using henjas to make themselves look older, or in some cases, relocate to a different area entirely. This was the 7th time that Naruto and Hinata were back in Japan. The last place they spent 30 years in was in Hong Kong, where their descendants from Mocha's bloodline resided. Minato's bloodline resided in Japan, and one of them were in Hinata's class. Of course, aside from Mocha and Minato, Naruto and Hinata had countless children over the years. Some of their lines still existed, while others were extinct. Their daughter, Yumi, was a student in elementary school, a recent addition to the Namikaze bloodline. Over the thousands of years, Naruto and Hinata had many occupations from assassin to daimyo to shogun to businessman. It was only recently that Naruto decided to write his memoirs, of which Hinata had been reading to the class. As for the other Jinchuuriki, they were still alive as well. Utakata, they had left while he was in Hong Kong. Roshi and Han were in Okinawa, Yugito had settled in Seoul, Gaara made his home in the Mojave Desert, posing as an insane survivalist, B was somewhere in South America, and Fu made her home in England. Gathering her things and placing them into a shoulder bag, Hinata had decided that she had spent enough time walking down memory lane. Her husband was waiting for her. Tokyo University, campus. He stood in the midst of the students as they walked past him. 6 feet tall, with undisciplined reddish hair a la Chris, RE5 hairdo, blue eyes, his muscular frame hidden underneath the black long coat and dark business suit. It was winter and the Christmas holidays had just begun. The cold had never really bothered him, being a former Jinchuuriki. He was known as Takeshi Fujikawa to most people. A respected professor of literature here at Todai, as well as an accomplished writer. But to a select few, he was Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Naruto didn't have to wait long for his wife to make her presence known. Bundled up in her own overcoat and scarf, shoulder bag slung over one shoulder, Hinata Namikaze approached her husband with a smile on her face. Been waiting long, love? Nah, just got here, I'm ready, he asked, extending his arm out. Hinata responded by slipping her arm through Naruto's own. The couple then walked off, until they were just another couple heading home for the holidays. Maybe one day, the emperor will rise once again to lead, but now, he was just a family man ready to spend the holidays with his wife and daughter. The legacy of the Namikaze clan will continue. End. So ends Wrath of the Emperor. But there is an omake that I forgot to add in the last chapter. Here is. Hope you enjoy it. OMAKE. Hikato no Naruto, Part 2. Snafu's notes, I forgot to add this in the last chapter. Sasuke growled as his eyes shifted into the Sharingan. Naruto had played him for a fool yet again. The Kumid back in the Empire, you designed it solely just to humiliate me. Naruto shook his head. Actually, I didn't. I just manipulated the tournament so you would end up fighting Rasu. The fact that you managed to get as far as you did was a miracle in itself. You should feel honored, Sasuke. Thanks to me, you will get a place in history as the man who brought about Konoha's downfall. A spiteful, bitter, spoiled Uchiha, although I will gladly take the credit for destroying the leaf. Asuma, having been silent for the duration of this confrontation, balked. You used us, all of us, just so you could destroy Konoha. Don't you just love it when a plan comes together? I sure do. This was something that Hinata and I had came up with while we were fighting in the Unification Wars as a joke. But once we united the lands, we gave it some more serious thought. But before we could deal with the leaf, there was Obito and the Akatsuki, as they would more than likely come after me for having the Baiju in my possession. Obito invading Suna gave me the excuse needed to go to war, as Suna is an ally. Once Obito and the Akatsuki was wiped out, I could finally focus on Konoha. Hiruzen had heard enough. Madness in his eyes, he charged at Naruto, as did Asuma, brandishing his bloodied trench knives. However, Kurama intervened. Two of her foxtails had speared the resurrected father and son and lifted them into the air. As the Konoha side watched in horror, save for the two Senju brothers and Orochimaru, Kurama incinerated both men, reducing them to charred bones. The special kunai designed by Orochimaru to control them fell to the ground, charred from the intense heat. Sensei! Jiraiya shouted in horror. Goodbye, Hiruzen Sarutobi, Naruto sniped. Give my regards to Koharu and Honmura. Jiraiya, at that moment, saw red. You devil! The enraged super pervert screamed, forming a rasengan in his hand, and charged at the Emperor, who just simply stood there. The expression on his face was one of boredom. Naruto sidestepped the rasengan and hooked Jiraiya's arm in an armbreaker hold. Sure enough, Naruto snapped the super pervert's arm at the elbow, which was followed by thwack. Tsunade's eyes widened, as did those of Sakura, the Senju brothers, Orochimaru and even Sasuke. The reason being was that Naruto had jammed both his thumbs into Jiraiya's temples. What did you do to me? Jiraiya whispered. Nothing fancy, replied Naruto as if he was discussing the weather. This attack is called Zankaiken, the Fist of Penitence. A simple technique, really. All I did was struck your pressure points in your temple, which are called toy. Want to know what happens when I remove my thumbs, Jiraiya? You will have exactly 7 seconds to live. Once the 7 seconds are up, you will split vertically in half and your body will explode. All in all, a very painful death. Impossible. You should know by now that I make the impossible possible. Word of advice, Jiraiya, better use those 7 seconds to ask for forgiveness for what you had done to my parents and to my clan. Your 7 seconds begins. Naruto paused to remove his thumbs. Now. Jiraiya stumbled backwards and fell on his ass. 7 seconds, Jiraiya, Naruto said. 6 seconds. No, shouted Jiraiya. I can't die, not yet. 5 seconds. I still got so much to do. I have to release the newest Ika. I still haven't peeped on Tsunade without her catching me, let alone get her in bed with me. Tsunade looked at him in disgust. 3 seconds. And I still haven't met Murasaki Shibuku. So much for doing the right thing. Time's up. Goodbye, Jiraiya. Jiraiya froze in place. Then he began to scream as his body gruesomely split in two before exploding in a shower of blood, bone and gore, some of it splattering on Tsunade and Orochimaru. Even Hashirama and Tobirama looked shocked as to what had happened. You were getting better at that, kid, Kurama noted, having used her tails to swat aside pieces of Jiraiya that was sent her way. She then noticed Tsunade charging in, fists raised, ready to knock Naruto's head off while he was distracted. Kushina noticed this as well, as she quickly reacted. Naruto found himself standing beside his father, while Kushina faced off against Tsunade. Tsunade Senju was 1/3 of Konoha's legendary Sannin. She was a renowned medic ninja and known not only for her infamous brute strength but also her bad luck when it comes to gambling. She had relied mostly on her brute strength, and not more on the Senju style of Taijutsu, which she was going to pay for dearly. You dare betray me, Tsunade shouted as she swung her fists at the red-hot habanero, not noticing that Kushina had casually tapped several pressure points on her wrists. You betrayed my family, Kushina replied, her voice calm, but to anyone who knew her Kushina was furious. The Uzumaki never forgive those who betrayed their clan, including those who had Uzumaki blood in their veins. For that, you must pay. She then smirked at her aunt. You really think that you can hit me with those hands? That caused Tsunade to stop. She remembered Kushina tapping her wrists as she was dodging her punches. No, she didn't. Kushina nodded. Yeah, I did. Tsunade's fingers began to swell. Then her hands exploded, spraying blood all over, the goddamn Hokage screaming in pain from the sneak attack. But Kushina was not finished. There was a special place in hell for those who betrayed the Uzumaki, and she was going to send Tsunade there. ATA ta 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 wa ta. Wham 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 kapow. Minato knew what Kushina was capable of. She was not known as the Red Death for nothing. A barrage of rapid-fire punches, hundreds of them from the look of things, struck Tsunade repeatedly before Kushina finished the barrage with a punch to the face, knocking Tsunade down. Only when Tsunade got back to her feet, did she notice that something was wrong. Her body jerked violently before her legs began to walk backwards of their own will. My legs. I can't control my legs. Uzumaki Ryo Ugi, Kushina began, Zankai Seki Hoken. I struck the Shitsugen pressure point on your body, Tsunade. You will walk backwards without you unable to control your legs. Do me a favor and walk yourself straight into hell. You traitor, Tsunade screamed. I'd be more concerned about what I'm walking into, Naruto said, pointing behind the godime. Tsunade turned around, and saw that she was walking directly towards a burning building. Despite her attempt to get her legs under control, they were in the end, futile. In desperation, she tried to appeal to Naruto. Naruto, please, don't let this happen to me. I'm sorry for betraying you. Please, show mercy. Sorry, replied the emperor. I'm all out of mercy. I ran out of it when you banished me. Sakura, ever the loyal apprentice, tried to stop Tsunade from walking into the burning building. Even until the bitter end, Sakura tried to rescue her mentor, only to end up being burned alive along with her mentor, their screams echoing throughout Konoha as they perished inside the inferno. As Orochimaru was distracted by watching Tsunade die, Minato had snuck around and freed the Senju brothers from Orochimaru's control and allowed their souls to rest. Yo, Snake Man. Orochimaru turned around and felt two fingers pressed up against his forehead. Looking into the face of Naruto, Orochimaru felt complacent in the fact that as he was immortal, Naruto's attacks would have no effect on him, unlike Jiraiya. So, Orochimaru began, do you really think that you can kill me like you did to Jiraiya? I am immortal. Hiden said the same thing, Naruto replied as he removed his fingers from Orochimaru's skull. This is the same technique I used to kill him with. It's called Kaikotsuken. Let's see how your immortality holds up when your skeleton explodes from your body. You're bluffing. Unfortunately, Orochimaru soon found out that Naruto was not bluffing. His body began to distort and contort, until finally, his skeleton blew out from the back, the skeleton crashing into a nearby wall, while the rest of his body fell into a heap. The last thing he thought before dying was how in the hell could this happen to him? So ended the Sannin. Kurama, on the other hand, got a measure of payback by incinerating Sasuke and Kabuto. When Kakashi tried to use the Sharingan on Kurama, he too was incinerated. So ended the lives of Kabuto Yakushi and Sasuke Uchiha once and for all. That was so satisfying, Kurama said as she kicked what was Sasuke's skull to the side.